Chapter 1420. The two abruptly stopped in their tracks as they stared in horror at the dozen or so local ruffians surrounding them with clubs. Who are you people? The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law hugged each other as they trembled, a bad premonition slipping through their hearts. When Wei Mingli left just now, they both noticed the hint of loathing and hatred she was suppressing in her eyes. Is it like this? But the two of them were at least her only remaining close relatives in this world. Brothers, our employer said it. Beat them to death, ha! A group of ferocious ruffians rushed forward and surrounded the two powerless women. They raised their clubs and gave them a good beating without any explanation. Soon, a personal guard appeared in Wei Mingli's carriage. Reporting to Miss, those two old women have already been beaten to death in the back alley by the local ruffians. Their corpses were fed to the wild dogs. Excitement flitted across Wei Mingli's eyes, and she nodded. Well done. She would repay these people who had tormented her in all sorts of ways and treated her terribly in the past bit by bit. Just wait. A shrewd glint flitted across Wei Mingli's eyes, and she lifted the curtain. She saw a carriage hurrying over on the official road across from them. Wei Mingli abruptly let go of the curtain and took a deep breath. Get ready. Mo Lien had received definite news the moment he came out of the town hall that his little crown princess had run off on Qingluan. Thus, he decided to head to the North City Gate to find his wifey and also welcome the late second prince of Southern Bailey, Bailey Shi. However, the carriage had just stepped onto the official road of North Main Street and hadn't gone far when another carriage suddenly sped over. The accompanying guards' faces darkened, and they were just about to step forward and shout for these two bold carriages to stop and not disturb His Highness the Crown Prince's grand self. Unexpectedly, a startling change occurred in that instant. A wheel suddenly flew out of the oncoming carriage, and the entire carriage swerved and crashed straight into Prince Mo's carriage. If they were hit head-on, Prince Mo's carriage would also be knocked askew. Then should he still go and fetch his wife? Should he meet Bailey Shi? Mo Lien put down the bamboo tube in her hand and put back the information she had received from the other bases. As soon as she raised her head, she heard the coachman's terrified roar. The carriage immediately tilted to one side. Until there was a loud crash, Mo Lien suddenly saw darkness in front of his eyes, as if another carriage was pressing down on his carriage. Crown Prince Mo's carriage driver shrieked in fright, and he steered the carriage to adjust repeatedly. However, the other party's carriage was firmly pressed against their carriage like this, so no matter how he steered, the carriage still tilted in one direction. Boom! Prince Mo naturally wouldn't stay in the carriage like an idiot. After gathering all the information in the carriage into his inner world, he broke through the roof of the carriage and exited. At this moment, a slender figure also climbed out of her own window. She was about to stumble into the Crown Prince's arms. The group of guards running after the carriage shouted angrily, "Your Highness!" They saw His Highness valiantly kick away the woman who had fallen to his side. No one else could do this. Everyone thought. Only their Crown Prince could do such an unreliable thing. Such a delicate girl, she must have had 8 lifetimes of bad luck. They saw the person who flew out in a parabola. With a pie, she flew far away and landed heavily on the ground. She would probably have a nosebleed from the fall. I'll be busy until Friday. I might have to move it to Saturday, depending on the situation. Goodbye, Wei. Chapter 1421. The guards swarmed forward to check on the woman who was sprawled on the ground and hadn't moved for a long time. A guard hurriedly stepped forward and said, "Your Highness, she's fainted." What a joke! How many people in this world could withstand a flying kick from His Highness? Perhaps this unlucky woman still hadn't figured out how she had flown out. Miss, who are you people? Why are you treating my miss like this? The coachman crawled over and cried out in a panic. Prince Mo glanced at him, then his gaze landed on the other party's hands. That coachman reflexively looked down. There was nothing else in his 2 chubby hands that were as white as radishes. Mo Lien curled her lips mockingly. She turned and leaped onto the horse that the guards had brought over and rushed toward North Main Street without looking back. Cough, cough, cough. When Wei Mingli woke up, she felt an excruciating pain in her chest. That man's flying kick just so happened to land right on her chest, making her feel as if her chest was about to collapse in that instant. My heavens, how could there be such an insensitive man in this world? When he saw a delicate beauty throwing herself into his arms, his first reaction wasn't to reach out and embrace her, but to kick her out? Where exactly did this weirdo come from? Wei Mingli coughed several times. She was about to struggle and asked the coachman to help her up when she suddenly saw a swarm of guards rush in front of them and press the two of them to kneel on the ground with long and short knives. Wei Mingli was so angry that her pretty face instantly flushed pink. The moment she spoke, she tossed aside the pretense of delicateness from before. What are you doing? What do you want to do? None of the guards paid any attention to her. They simply lifted the two of them up, tied them up, and threw them onto horses. Then, they yelled and shouted as they headed in the direction of the Ministry of Justice's prison. The moment Wei Mingli saw the words, Ministry of Justice, appear before her eyes, she was stupefied. She was so angry that her entire body trembled uncontrollably. It wasn't fear. It was truly anger. That weirdo was actually so resolute in his actions. Not only did he kick her on the street, but he was also attempting to imprison her in the Ministry of Justice's prison? This forced her to lower her head and examine herself again. Wasn't she beautiful? In the past half a year, whether it was her temperament or her beauty, she had steadily improved by more than one level. Thus, even the second prince was mesmerized by her beauty. But now, Wei Mingli and the coachman were dragged into the Ministry of Justice's dungeon. Without another word, the prison guards tied the two of them to the two pillars used for interrogating prisoners in the dungeon lobby. A prison guard swung a whip soaked in chilly water and smiled fiercely at her and the coachman. Wei Mingli's hair stood on end. The whip lashed down, and the coachman let out a squeal like a pig. TSK, TSK, TSK? The guard commander stood at the side and watched, his eyes filled with disdain. You've only been lashed once and you're already screaming like that. How many more lashes do you think you can take? Brother. No, don't hit me, don't hit me. I'm just a cart driver. Everything was instigated by Miss. It was the young Miss who instigated it. As soon as that carriage driver finished speaking, Wei Mingli, who was tied to another pillar, was so angry that she couldn't stop kicking him. You coward, what did you say? Hit her, hit her. It really has nothing to do with me. This lowly one is just a hired passerby. Sob, sob, sob. Chapter 1422. Beat him. At the guard commander's command, the whip dipped in chilly water lashed the coachman's body again and again, until he was charred on the outside and tender on the inside. It was only then that Wei Mingli felt scared. Her body, which was tied to the pillar, trembled non-stop against the pillar. She was truly scared. That day, when she saw His Highness the Crown Prince chase them out of the Marquis of Juan's estate, she should have known that this Crown Prince was very cold-blooded and heartless. He wasn't someone to be trifled with at all. But there was no medicine for regret in this world. Before she tried, she thought that she would definitely capture this man's heart with her beauty and figure. It was only after she tried that she realized how naive she and His Highness the Second Prince were. This mission that His Highness the Second Prince assigned was simply impossible to complete, because His Highness the Crown Prince was completely heartless and extremely cold. He wouldn't be moved by her, Wei Mingli, because she was a woman, and he definitely wouldn't be intoxicated by her beauty and be unable to extricate himself like other men. How terrifying! Wei Mingli shuddered all over and reflexively swallowed. At this time, the jailer had already knocked out the white, fat man next to her. He was in a rather wretched state. His perfectly fine white robes hung in strips on his body, and whip wounds covered his face, body, and the back of his hands. At this time, he was already breathing out more than he was breathing in. Miss, it's your turn now. See, are you going to confess properly? Or are you going to be fiercely whipped like this man before confessing properly? The jailer's eyes roamed over her voluptuous body as he spoke with a wicked smile. Wei Mingli only felt her body tense, and an unprecedented nervousness crept into her heart. Her eyes stared helplessly at the whip in the jailer's hand, and before he could raise it high, she shrieked, I'll confess everything. It'll be fine as long as you confess. The guard commander on the side put his hands on his hips and took the whip from the jailer's hand. He patted it in his hand and said, "Speak. Who sent you here to trick His Highness?" Wei Mingli shuddered and stammered, "I'll speak," lights the second prince. "I'm a songstress in the second prince's estate." The guard leader was stunned for a moment before he laughed. "Do you know where your biggest flaw is? A coachman who has been driving a carriage for many years. His entire body is white and fat. Not to mention that His Highness doesn't believe you. Even with my eyesight, I can tell that something is wrong with you." Wei Mingli's face was ashen. The white fatty was a small steward in the second prince's residence. He was the brother of the second prince's favorite concubine and was usually trusted by the second prince. The mission of getting close to the Eastern Palace was very important, and Mo Lu still didn't quite trust her. Thus, she had originally planned to have this plump and fair steward follow her into the Eastern Palace. Under the guise of assisting her, he would actually monitor her and prevent her from forgetting her original mission once she was in the Eastern Palace. Unexpectedly, although the second prince's plan was good, the crown prince was too powerful and saw through it with a single glance. Wei Mingli didn't know what to think. What do you want?" Wei Mingli's heart was trembling. She didn't expect that not only would she not be able to get half a step closer to the crown prince, she would even be thrown into prison. Wei Mingli shuddered as she watched the guard commander bring people over to untie her and the white fatty. "Officials, this little girl knows her mistake. Stop talking, let's go." The guard commander gave her a shove. Chapter 1423. Wei Mingli's nerves were taut as she staggered forward. She glanced to the side and saw that the fair fatty was like a dead pig. After he was put down from the pillar, his head drooped as he was dragged forward. What are you doing?" Wei Mingli asked, trembling. The guard commander and his entourage didn't say anything else to her. They directly dragged the two people onto their horses and rode toward the second prince's estate while yelling. On the other end, Mo Lu smugly stepped into his house. His happiness lasted for less than an hour. He saw the steward run inside in a panic and shout, "Master, master!" Something happened, the main entrance. The second prince's expression changed slightly, and he hastily followed the steward to the main entrance. As he walked, he anxiously asked, "What happened?" "Miss Lily has returned." "Lily?" The second prince's face instantly darkened. His first thought was, Lily actually failed? She really was a good-for-nothing. How long had it been and she was already back? Did she not encounter his good sixth brother at all, or did she not manage to get close to anyone else at all? The second prince thought about how he had painstakingly groomed Wei Mingli for the better part of a year, but she was actually of no use at all at the crucial moment. Thus, he stomped out of the main entrance with a belly full of anger. He saw a junior commander dressed in royal guard attire standing at the bottom of the steps with a fake smile and saluting him from afar. "Second prince. This lowly officer is here to deliver a gift in return on His Highness the Crown Prince's orders." "Open it." At the junior commander's command, 3 to 4 royal guards immediately dragged the person down from the horse and directly threw her at the second prince's estate's entrance. The second prince looked down and saw Wei Mingli curling up and rolling on the ground. She scrambled up the steps with all her might as she wailed mournfully, "Your Highness." Then he looked at that fair and fat junior steward. He had actually been beaten to the point that there wasn't a single piece of unharmed flesh on his body. The second prince couldn't help but be stupefied when he saw this. This wasn't a failure at all. Rather, the crown prince had seen through her identity, right? How long had it been? He had painstakingly cultivated such a beauty for half a year. Originally, he wanted to use her as a delicate chess piece and secretly place her in the crown prince's residence. He had thought that in the future, this little chess piece would surely be able to take a stunning step forward, but he never expected that all his previous efforts would be wasted today. In less than 2 hours, Wei Mingli was exposed by the crown prince and thrown back to the second prince's estate. The second prince only felt that his face was unbearably painful. It was as if someone had smeared chili oil on his face, causing him to feel a burst of burning irritation. Could it be that Mo Lu's IQ was actually so much lower than Sixth Brother's? The second prince couldn't accept it no matter how hard he tried. He just stood there in a daze at the entrance of the second prince's residence. He didn't even know when the group of people who had come to deliver the gifts mounted their horses and left. His eyes were fixed on one spot, and his mind was completely blank. Other than the sound of Wei Mingli's cries filling his head, he felt as if countless ghostly hands were pulling at his brain and screaming, "Show off." It was a blatant demonstration. The second prince choked on a mouthful of blood and rolled his eyes to the sky. Unable to withstand the stimulation, he fell backward and landed in front of the gate with a thud. Oh no, oh no, the second prince fainted from anger. Hurry and come. Hurry and go to the palace to summon the imperial physician to treat him. Your Highness, Your Highness. The second prince's estate was instantly thrown into chaos. Chapter 1424. On the other side, His Highness the Crown Prince, who had just finished giving his second royal brother a big gift, finally felt a bit more at ease. This wondrous second prince simply disgusted him to death. He simply couldn't understand how his second royal brother's brain worked. How could he be this stupid? How did he think of secretly grooming a songstress, wanting to fish in troubled waters, and toss her into his eastern palace as a spy without anyone knowing? Did he think that everyone was as stupid as him? What kind of person did he think he was? A random chance encounter on the street was enough to make him willingly bring that woman back to the eastern palace? It was still the same question. What was his second royal brother thinking? This second royal brother was probably really a fool, so he thought that everyone was a fool that after being delayed by Wei Mingli, when Emolian rushed to North Street, Darling Xiao had already pulled Princess Xiaomi back to the guest house to stay. Prince Mo hastily ran over to pick up his wifey, but instead of his wifey, he picked up the icy-faced Bailey Shi. I'm honored that Your Highness the Crown Prince personally came to welcome me. Bailey Shi cupped his hands towards His Highness and said expressionlessly, His Highness the Crown Prince, that he inwardly criticized, don't flatter yourself, we didn't come to pick you up. On the surface, he raised a smile that was like a spring breeze. Second Prince Bailey, long time no see. You're still as elegant as ever. Bailey Shi nodded. Crown Prince praises me too much? You too, how long has it been since we last met? You keep calling me Your Highness the Crown Prince and Second Prince Bailey. Aren't you tired and annoying? A mocking laughter came from the side. Wei Nanfeng was like a monkey as he rolled down from a roof and arrived in front of the two with a grin. I heard that you were entering the city today, so I came to welcome you. How is it? I'm a good brother, right? Wei Nanfeng stepped forward and elbowed Bailey Shi's arm. Let's go. We haven't seen each other in a while, let's find a place to drink. At this time, Assistant Minister of Rights Huang Yi also rushed over after hearing the news. When he saw the Crown Prince, he hurriedly went forward to greet him. The Crown Prince swept a glance at Assistant Minister Huang and asked seemingly absent-mindedly, Have you seen the Crown Princess? Yes, yes, yes. Assistant Minister Huang nodded repeatedly. Hearing this, Emolien's eyes suddenly lit up. Where is she now? The Crown Princess accompanied the Princess of the Southern Shao Kingdom to the guest hotel. Hey! Wei Nanfeng's body flashed as he extended his hand to block Emolien's path. Emolien, you can't be serious. We brothers have only met for less than half an hour, and you want to leave? Prince Mo immediately waved his hand and said, I'll have tea with you some other day. What a joke. What was there to talk about with these two stinky men? Of course, finding his own wife was more important. After he finished speaking, he waved his hand and left the two men behind without looking back. He mounted his horse and galloped towards the guest house in the capital. Bailey Shi and Wei Nanfeng were left behind. They looked at each other in dismay and shook their heads in unison. They sighed inwardly. Emolien, this guy, why did he become more clingy with the little stoic after not seeing him for so many years? But speaking of which, they hadn't seen that little stoic for a long time, so how about? The two of them exchanged a look, mounted their horses in unison, and followed after him. After Arbor saw that Princess Xiaomi had settled down, he chatted with her for a while before coming out of the guest house. Before she could board the carriage, she heard the clip-clop of horse hooves, and a familiar voice called out to her from afar, Jojo, Jojo. Chapter 1425. Arbor was exasperated as she watched Prince Emo gallop over on his horse. Just as he was about to reach her, that guy suddenly flew up and arrived beside her with a swish. He cried out pitifully, "Jojo, Jojo, it's bad." Hubby was almost taken advantage of by a scoundrel. Hurry and comfort hubby's nearly injured body and mind. Arbor thought she couldn't take it anymore. Ever since they got married, this guy's skin had become increasingly thicker, and she couldn't reverse it no matter what. Arbor reflexively hugged his waist and patted it with her small hand. What scoundrel! Mo Lien hastily recounted everything that happened just now from beginning to end to his wife. After he was done, he even took credit for it in front of his wife. "Jojo, am I smart or not? Say, is this Mo Lu stupid or not? Where did he get the confidence to think that he could fool me with this kind of underhanded trick?" Darling Xiao was a bit angry. Wasn't this Mo Lu punished by the Great King and grounded for 3 months? How come he can come out now? You know the old man. It's impossible for him to enforce orders and prohibitions. It's already good enough that he didn't change his orders constantly. When Mo Lien saw her serious expression, he quickly pinched her small face in amusement. "Don't worry, hubby has always been careful and prudent. I absolutely won't be taken away by a scoundrel." Arbor pursed her small lips. "Where are those 2 people? I sent people to throw them back to the second prince's estate. It's not like I can keep them for dinner." Apparently, second royal brother was so angry that he fainted. Serves him right? A cold glint flitted through Arbor's eyes. He got off easy. Of course I can't let him off easy like this. This guy is so good at jumping around, I'll find something for him to do. Oh, as expected, he forgets his brothers after getting a wife. Bailey, look, I guessed correctly. I knew this guy abandoned us and ran off. He must have come to see the little stoic. Then, Bailey nodded expressionlessly. The 2 of them hadn't seen the little girl for a while, and they couldn't help but marvel in amazement when they saw her today. What an icy beauty with a face as bright as the moon and eyes as cold as the stars. After this little stoic grew up, she seemed to make people unable to take their eyes off her. "What are you looking at?" Mo Lien pettily hooked his hand and pulled his wifey into his arms. "Qiao Qiao, ignore them. We're going home." Arbor nonchalantly nodded his head. His gaze only swept over Wei Nanfeng and Bailey Shi's faces before withdrawing. Too heartless. Wei Nanfeng let out a howl. Arbor turned a blind eye to him. He turned back to look at Bailey Shi and nodded. "Thank you for the ebony pieces. It's no trouble at all." Bailey Shi nodded with an indifferent expression. "This is for you." The little stoic waved her hand, and a brocade pouch landed in Bailey Shi's hand. "I see that you're about to break through to level 13. There are 2 level 13 mystic breakthrough pills in the bottle, which should be able to help you break through smoothly." Although the little stoic was expressionless, her words seemed to stir up 1,000 ripples. Bailey Shi and Wei Nanfeng were both flabbergasted. Especially our dear Wei Nanfeng, who was originally waving the folding fan in his hand flirtatiously and confidently. He was so frightened by Arbor's words that his fan fell to the ground with a clatter. His entire person seemed to have been struck by lightning, and he was blown away by the wind. "Princess Mi said that you 2 are about to get married, so this can be considered my wedding gift to you in advance." Chapter 1426. You're getting married? Wei Nanfeng and Mo Lien simultaneously turned to look at the stupefied Bailey Shi. Bailey Shi had yet to wake up from the ecstasy of receiving 2 levels 13 mystic breakthrough pills when he instantly sunk into the stupefied state of getting married. How come he didn't know when he was actually getting married? The little stoic pattered forward at this time and patted Bailey Shi's shoulder forcefully. "Xiaomi is pretty good. You're an ice cube and don't like to talk, while Xiaomi is chatty all day long. You won't be oppressed in the future, so the 2 of you just happen to complement each other. Treat her well." The 3 men present. Wei Nanfeng burst out laughing at an inappropriate time. The little stoic promptly swept him a disdainful glance. "What would a person without a wife like you know? You still have the face to laugh at others. Just be a bachelor for the rest of your life." Wei Nanfeng. "Ha, Emolian truly couldn't hold back and laughed out loud. He flashed forward and pulled his wifey into his embrace. Jojo, Jojo, my Jojo. Wei Nanfeng couldn't help but be speechless. Hey, brother, why don't you say something about your wife? Why is it that after so many years, she still doesn't like me? Look, she gave away 2 precious level 13 mystic breakthrough pills to Bailey Shi in one go. As for him, he wouldn't be hurt if he didn't make a comparison, but once he did, he would simply be infuriated to death. Not only did he not get the mystic breakthrough pills, but he was also dissed by the little stoic. So what if he got married? Alright, you guys should also get off the bed and rest early. Tomorrow, I'll have someone show you around the city. Grandmother will summon you the day after tomorrow. After Prince Imo finished speaking, he pulled his wifey's hand and galloped away on his horse with her in his arms. Wei Nanfeng couldn't help but be a bit envious when he saw the two of them glued to each other like glue and honey. He grumbled, if I knew earlier, I would have married a considerate wife as soon as possible. Then I wouldn't have been poked in the heart by the stoic today. Bailey Shi put away the brocade pouch containing the 2 leveled 13 mystic breakthrough pills and walked straight into the guest house. When Wei Nanfeng saw this, he couldn't help but shout angrily from behind. Hey, you Bailey Shi, don't you know how to comfort your brother? What an ungrateful fellow. One day later, the Empress Dowager's grand birthday banquet began in Jinxiu Garden of the Longevity Palace. The officials of the 3rd rank and above had already brought their beautiful wives and daughters to the main hall of the Jinxiu Garden in the Longevity Palace. The eunuch in charge shouted, Northern Wei's 3rd prince congratulates the Empress Dowager on her birthday. A pair of Wanghai pearls and a dendrobium of white jade pearls. Southern Bailey's 2nd Highness wishes the Empress Dowager a long life. Groups of guests from various countries walked into the hall with smiles on their faces and rosy cheeks. The Empress Dowager was sitting on the main seat at the top of the steps. She was dressed in bright red, smiling as she looked at the people from all walks of life who came to congratulate her. Feng Gu stood next to the Empress Dowager and occasionally bent over to explain to the elderly lady which country's guests were standing in the main hall. Today was the joyous day of her 70th birthday. The Empress Dowager was in great spirits. She couldn't stop smiling as she looked at the hall full of children and grandchildren. The Aikido tribe's young chieftain wishes the Empress Dowager a happy birthday. Present. The Alava tribe's little princess congratulates the Empress Dowager on her birthday. Present. One after another, greetings and gifts were announced, one after another, and one after another, continuously. Everyone beamed from ear to ear as they looked at this prosperous scene. Arbor sat next to the crown prince and looked on indifferently. However, when he heard the eunuch announce the Alava tribe's name, his eyelids twitched slightly. Broken sleep. Chapter 1427. The Alava tribe. There was an indescribable sense of familiarity. Arbor was just thinking about how he had heard of this tribe's name before when he saw a red figure leading a dozen or so men and women of different tribes walk into the main hall. This red-clothed girl was about 18 years old. She wore a neat scarlet riding outfit and a pair of black riding boots. Her long hair was tied up, revealing a small, spotlessly white face that resembled a full moon. There was a small, extremely familiar dimple on her left cheek. Arbor's eyes bulged and he stood up from his seat, almost out of control. The crown prince was taken aback, and he looked up at his wifey who suddenly stood up. At this time, the red-clothed girl also seemed to have noticed Arbor, who had abruptly stood up. When she clearly saw the girl's little stoic face, her eyes instantly turned round. However, before she could quickly walk up to meet Xiao Mu, a brawny man with an unshaven beard suddenly walked out from the Aikido tribe's team in front of her. He gave her a boorish smile before saying disdainfully, the little rats of the Alava tribe actually have the courage to walk out of their tiny caves and come to Northern Mo's territory. How did you hide along the way? The people of the Aikido tribe roared with laughter, completely disregarding whether they attracted the attention of the other guests as they publicly berated the red-clothed girl from the Alava tribe. The red-clothed girl unsheathed her sword and slapped it on the brawny man's chest, pushing him back with all her might. She said with an icy expression, Today is Northern Mo's Queen Dowager's birthday, so this girl won't lower herself to your level. Scram. The Aikido tribe's brawny man with a stubble immediately jumped up and furiously swung his fist at the red-clothed girl. His action incurred the displeasure of Northern Mo's officials, and they all looked at him coldly with suppressed anger in their eyes. However, because he was a guest, and the great king and the Queen Dowager had yet to speak, they naturally couldn't be the first to criticize him. Swish swish swish, smack. A crafty green vine drilled out of nowhere and directly transformed into the shadow of a whip, fiercely whipping the brawny man's elbow-sized fist. Ow wow! The brawny man howled uncontrollably as a bloody mark appeared on his fist after being hit by this blow. Among the people present, some of the sex and family heads who were invited couldn't help but twitch their mouths. Here it comes, here it comes, here it comes again. This unlucky man could have made a move in front of anyone, but he actually dared to be so arrogant in front of the little crown princess. Although most people didn't know who did it, they were all secretly pleased. The people of the Aikido tribe actually disregarded their dignity and attacked another group of guests from Northern Moi at the Queen Dowager's banquet. They should indeed be taught what etiquette was. Who attacked me? The bearded man angrily turned his head, his gaze searching the hall back and forth. Everyone was glaring at him with sullen faces. Even the Empress Dowager, who had been smiling all the time, suddenly darkened her face. Her somewhat angry gaze fell on the big man's face. The great king slammed the table and said angrily, "Who are you? How can you be so rude?" The bearded man was still somewhat respectful and fearful of the great king of Northern Moi. When he heard this, he hastily crossed his chest and bowed respectfully to the great king. "Honorable Northern Moi Great King, this lowly one is the Chiliarch of the Aikido tribe, Kaisenj. This lowly one has come with our young chief to offer birthday gifts to Her Majesty the Empress Dowager of Northern Moi." Chapter 1428. I was actually attacked for no reason at this time. As the great king of Northern Mo, shouldn't you give this lowly one an explanation? After all, this lowly one is a guest of Northern Mo, and your great Mo kingdom has a duty to protect me. Everyone couldn't help feeling indignant at Kaisen's rascally appearance. Give you a bullshit explanation. You were the first to attack someone at the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet, and you still have reason? Now that someone had secretly attacked you, you actually have the face to complain tearfully to the great king for an explanation? The people from the Aikido tribe standing to the side didn't make a sound. Instead, they watched all of this with interest. The Aikido tribe had always been the most powerful tribe in the Western Wastelands. Their people never needed to beg for mercy or shed tears. Whatever they encountered, they would directly face it by themselves. Kaisen was their Aikido tribe's Chiliarch and a valiant level 13 body cultivator. They believed that with Kaisen's ability, he definitely wouldn't be at a disadvantage. However, they seemed to be overly confident. "I'll give you an explanation." An icy voice came from the front of the main hall. A red figure flashed, and the person landed in front of Kaisen. There wasn't the slightest bit of expression on her snow-white face, and there was only a solemn and chilly air. Kaisen was taken aback, and a trace of amazement suddenly rose in his eyes. However, before he could tease her, an enormous force suddenly attached itself to his body. Kaisen was greatly shocked, completely not expecting that this little girl would actually attack as she pleased. Before he could say anything, he was lifted up by the enormous force and fell out of the main hall. Kaisen simply didn't know what was going on. However, everyone else in the main hall saw everything clearly and without a shadow of a doubt. The young crown princess didn't allow any explanation as she sent a palm flying through the air. Dense mystic energy slapped Kaisen's body, sending him flying out. Just one move was enough to send a level 13 body cultivator flying like a little chick. The force behind that slap was probably at least 1,000 pounds. The expressionless little crown princess dashed out of the main hall in a single stride. Before the unlucky Kaisen could get up from the ground, a palm formed by the earth spirit firmly covered his body. At the same time, everyone in the main hall rushed out like a swarm of bees. To watch, Kaisen was slapped by an earth spirit's palm and sunk into a flower bed of various sizes, forming a rather ridiculous human-shaped pit. He spat out a mouthful of blood as nourishment for the flowerbed. Cough, cough, cough. Kaysen looked at the little girl in shock. He had never imagined that he, a 13th-level body cultivator, would be unable to withstand a single blow from this little girl. What was going on? Even if this little girl had started to absorb the heaven and earth profound energy in her mother's womb, she shouldn't have grown to this extent. Arbor took out an ice sword that glinted with awe-inspiring light. He looked at him coldly and said, "Today is grandmother's birthday. I'll spare your life. Don't provoke me. You won't be able to bear the consequences." The little stoic calmly threw down this sentence before turning around and walking towards the woman in red. Unexpectedly, the woman cried out in alarm, "Junior sister. Be careful." "Kaysen, stop right there." ACI bellowed angrily. Kaysen swept over from behind with a sinister and malicious glint in his eyes. He clenched his fists and hammered two enormous forces at the back of the young crown princess's head. Chapter 1429. You're courting death? A cold glint flashed through Prince Mo's eyes, and he was about to fly to the little stoic's side. However, he saw the little stoic's figure abruptly vanish from the spot. Kaysen's 2 punches missed, and he staggered forward a few steps with a stupefied expression. At this time, the young chief of the Aikido tribe, ACI, had already arrived at his side and gave Kaysen a heavy slap across the face without allowing for an explanation. "Didn't you hear me tell you to stop? Who gave you the guts to kill her?" Kaysen clutched his swollen left cheek and shrunk his neck submissively. In the blink of an eye, they saw the little crown princess jump down from the main hall's roof. Everyone stared at her, stupefied. They looked at the place she disappeared from and the main hall's roof. Fuck, that was a huge distance away. They couldn't figure out how she could jump down from the roof. Mo Lien arrived beside her in a flash and grasped her small hand. He knew that this little fellow was holding back for grandmother's sake. Other people didn't know what was going on, but the discerning people present were very clear that the little crown princess had used a talisman. Arbor had precisely used a teleportation talisman to teleport away because she was worried that if this continued, she wouldn't be able to control herself and would slaughter this stinky man on the spot. A weakling actually dared to attack her from behind? This guy was full of flaws. One had to know that in that split second, Arbor had over a dozen ways to make him die on the spot, and he would die a very ugly death. However, she herself would feel extremely disgusted if someone died during grandmother's lively birthday banquet. Not to mention what grandmother would think. Kaysen didn't know that the Queen Dowager had imperceptibly saved his life. He didn't know what witchcraft the little crown princess had used to quickly teleport him to the roof. He only glanced at the little crown princess before his entire body trembled, and he retracted his gaze. He felt that the little girl's gaze was a bit too sharp and couldn't be looked straight at. Young Chief ACI, if you don't know how to manage your subordinates, this crown prince doesn't mind teaching him a lesson. Mo Lien glanced at Yasi. Without waiting for him to reply, she took Arbor's little hand and walked back into the hall. Arbor had too many questions that he wanted to ask the woman in red from the Alava tribe. However, celebrating his grandmother's birthday was more important, so he had to put everything on hold for now. It was just that its pair of big eyes would occasionally glance at the face of the red-clothed woman from the Alava tribe. The light in its eyes couldn't be suppressed, and everyone could see it. Situ-E nodded at the red-clothed woman, fanning himself as he sat in his seat, occasionally exchanging a few words with others. "I really didn't expect to see junior sister Doya well after so many years." Liang Qingqing couldn't help but sigh. Back then, when they went to Xixia Valley for the competition, the group of girls from the Holy Water sect were all very familiar with each other. No wonder little junior sister is so happy. Situ-E stopped fanning and smiled faintly. Sitting at the head seat, the Queen Dowager looked at her grandson and granddaughter-in-law with a grin. She recovered her cheerful expression and nodded repeatedly at the guests who were entering the hall again. The third crown prince of the Eastern Ing Kingdom, Ing Fa, congratulates the Queen Dowager on her birthday. A pair of ceremonial blue spiritual sparrows, a piece of fish dragon mystic jade, 5 fluorescent spirits. Commandery Princess Ian has arrived. Following this announcement, Ian slowly walked in from outside the main hall in a gorgeous and dazzling robe with fluttering sleeves. She instantly attracted all the guests' gazes. As expected of the Commandery Princess, who has always been by Her Majesty the Queen Dowager's side. Beautiful, generous, and lovely. Chapter 1430. Although the volume was not loud, Commandery Princess ate and enjoyed hearing the praises that came from all around her. They were all praising her with all their might. Sure enough, she was also excellent. She knew it. She was not inferior to that crown princess at all. It was just a pity that His Highness the Crown Prince kept a distance from her from beginning to end, unwilling to look her in the eye. Otherwise, she would definitely let him know how good she was. Commandery Princess Ian gracefully walked to the bottom of the steps with a graceful smile. She bowed docilely to the Queen Dowager and said softly, "Ian wishes Her Majesty the Queen Dowager good fortune, longevity, and good health." Ian has specially prepared a small gift for the Queen Dowager to express Ian's filial piety. Su Jung, who was bowing behind her, hastily raised a large red tray above her head. On top of it was a large red 100 lifespan painting, which was exquisitely and ostentatiously presented to everyone. Wow, the Commandery Princess personally embroidered a 100 lifespan painting for Her Majesty the Queen Dowager. As expected, her filial piety is commendable. Look at this 100 lifespan painting. It is about several meters long and exquisitely embroidered. It can be seen at a glance that she put in a lot of effort and time. That's right. It seems like it's not just this 100 lifespan painting. There's also a porcelain bottle. When Ian heard everyone mention the porcelain bottle on the tray, she couldn't help but reveal a smug expression. Inside the porcelain bottle is a high-grade prolongation pill. I hope it will be useful to Her Majesty the Queen Dowager. Wow. The main hall was abuzz with discussion. Could it be that Commandery Princess Ian was the one who bought a prolongation pill at an astronomical price at the House of Treasures last time? Oh, I also heard about this. Everyone praised Commandery Princess Ian with smiles. Her filial piety moved the heavens and moved the earth. In order to increase Her Majesty the Queen Dowager's lifespan, she did not hesitate to spend an astronomical price to purchase a prolongation pill. With Her Majesty the Queen Dowager's level 14 phenomenal success cultivation as a mystic cultivator, consuming a prolongation pill was actually not that effective. Although prolongation pills were high-grade pills, the higher the cultivator's cultivation, the less effective they were. Moreover, they heard that this prolongation pill that the House of Treasures was auctioning was only a middle-grade pill. Due to the different grades of medicinal pills, their medicinal effects would naturally differ greatly. If the Empress Dowager took this middle-grade prolonging life pill, it would at most increase her lifespan by 1 or 2 years. However, this was still a good amount of time. Cultivators, who didn't wish they could have a longer lifespan, so they could have more time to break through? The Queen Dowagers were the Queen Dowager's eyes to end, especially the heads of the aristocratic families who had been invited. Their shrewd old eyes shifted to the porcelain vase one after another, the Queen Dowager's dowagers. En Dowager Douse eyes of her queens in her douse. The Queen Dowager's gaze flickered, and she glanced at Commandery Princess Ian indifferently before nodding with a smile. I've troubled you. Dowagers was, but then, after the Empress Dowager took the prolonging life pill and reaped the benefits, she would naturally treat her as well as she did in the past. This estrangement was only temporary. Everyone seems to be curious about the prolongation pill. Since that's the case, then pass it around for everyone to peruse. Yes, Queen Dowager. The junior supervisor eunuch hastily walked down with the large red tray. Everyone was overjoyed, and they passed it around to look at the pill inside the porcelain bottle. The little stoic was startled. Someone turned around with a smile to look at the pill patrician family's patriarch and the 2 young sirs. Chapter 1431. Family Head Chin, eldest young master, second young master, you 3 are pill experts. May I know how much lifespan this prolongation pill can extend for the Queen Dowager? The one who spoke was Second Master Wu of the Wu family. His old eyes fell on the small porcelain bottle, and he almost could not take his eyes off it. Qin Guilu smiled faintly and stood up solemnly. He cupped his hands at the Queen Dowager and said, "The prolongation pill that the Commandery Princess purchased is a middle-grade advanced-level prolongation pill. According to its effects, if the Queen Dowager were to consume a middle-grade prolongation pill with her cultivation, perhaps the lifespan it can extend will not exceed half a year at most." As soon as Qin Guilu finished speaking, there was an uproar below. Rumors had already spread outside that this middle-grade advanced-level prolongation pill that the House of Treasures had auctioned off had been sold for the astronomical price of 170,000 high-grade mystic currency. Wasn't it a bit of a loss for such an astronomical price to only extend the Queen Dowager's lifespan by half a year? Although everyone was criticizing her in their hearts, they were all flattering her on the surface. Omega Kotoku looked up slightly, and her gaze swept past the little stoic's face so quickly that it was almost undetectable. However, the little fellow was still keenly aware of the oppressive gaze. When she looked over, she only saw that everyone in the main hall was talking loudly about the life prolongation pill. She didn't notice any suspicious gazes at all. She only felt that she was overthinking things, so she lowered her eyes slightly. On the side, Prince Mo squeezed her small hand gently, and the two whispered into each other's ears. When Commandery Princess Ijin saw their affectionate appearance, the discomfort in her heart abruptly expanded. Commandery Princess Ijin's eyes flickered, and she suddenly smiled at the Queen Dowager. She said softly, "Ian heard that the Crown Princess also prepared a big gift for Her Majesty the Queen Dowager. I really want to broaden my horizons." The crowd that was originally still chatting and laughing became absolutely silent all of a sudden. The main hall was so quiet that it was simply a bit frightening. Even the great king and the queen, who were sitting on the steps, had also put away their smiles, and their first glance reflexively landed on their daughter-in-law. "It's over!" The great king wailed in his heart. Did Ian take the wrong medicine? Why did she suddenly attack the little crown princess? Today, other than that idiotic Chiliarch of the Aikido tribe, who else would go against the crown princess for no reason? What a fool. Ian realized with a start that the crown prince's cold gaze had suddenly landed on her. His heart trembled slightly and he paused for a moment. The hall was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. The little stoic suddenly stood up expressionlessly and pattered to the center of the main hall. With a flip of her small hand, she took out a peach the size of a wash basin and held it up with both hands. "For your grandmother." No matter how he looked at it, this scene was adorable as the corners of everyone's mouth twitched, their eyes were filled with smiles. The Empress Dowager was grinning from ear to ear. "Oh, my good granddaughter-in-law, where did you get such a big peach of immortality? Good. Quickly present it." The Queen Dowager nodded repeatedly with a grin. The junior managing eunuch instantly put on a beaming face as he pattered down the steps to take the big peach of immortality that the crown princess handed over. The little stoic expressionlessly took out another one. The junior managing eunuch quickly ran back and forth twice to present the peach of immortality, smelling the peach's fragrance with an intoxicated expression. Damn, what kind of peach was this? Not only was it big, but it also emitted a spiritual energy, and its fragrance permeated the air. Chapter 1432. When the little crown princess took out those two peaches, everyone could smell the fragrance filling the hall, and they involuntarily swallowed their saliva. It was as if their eyes were glued to the peaches, and they couldn't shift their gazes away. The 12th prince even jumped up exaggeratedly. "Eldest sister-in-law. This peach, it's such a big one." Mo Lien speechlessly face-bombed and shot the little 12th a glare. "Shut up." The 12th prince pursed his lips aggrievedly and sat down pitifully, muttering softly, "Eldest sister-in-law, Yu'er's birthday is also coming up soon. Everyone, The little stoic glanced at him before retracting her gaze and looking at the junior steward eunuch who was jogging toward her again. Arbor beckoned the junior eunuch over with his small hand. The junior eunuch quickly ran over while bowing and saying with a chuckle, "Crown Princess." That little stoic expressionlessly flipped her small hand, and 2 white and clean small porcelain bottles and a small jar appeared in her hand. She tossed them all into the junior eunuch's hands. For grandmother, the old queen dowager was holding a large immortal peach and examining it carefully, grinning from ear to ear. When she heard this, she quickly looked up and looked at the 2 small porcelain bottles and the small jar that the junior eunuch had brought over. The queen dowager was moved, and she asked curiously with a smile, "What are these, granddaughter-in-law?" 3 prolongation pills. Everyone. 1 leveled 15 mystic breakthrough pill. Everyone. And a box of beautifying ointment. The entire main hall once again sank into a deathly silence. This time, no one really spoke anymore. Everyone sat there quietly, gazing at this stoic-faced little crown princess as if they were looking at a guest from another star domain. Impossible. Ian barely controlled her belly full of anger and looked up, but she still couldn't resist giving the crown princess a mocking look. Could it be that you want to tell everyone that you are a pill alchemist? Don't mention that beautifying ointment, I've never even heard of it. No one in the entire Seacone planet can refine something like a leveled 15 mystic breakthrough pill. Don't think that just because I don't know how to refine pills, I don't know about medicinal herbs. I heard that the fire spirit rhinoceros leaf, an essential medicinal ingredient for refining a leveled 15 mystic breakthrough pill, has long been extinct on Seacone planet. As she spoke, she once again glanced mockingly at the stoic face. Without the fire spirit rhinoceros leaf, what materials will you use to refine a leveled 15 mystic breakthrough pill? She wasn't the one who refined it, alright? That level 15 profound breakthrough pill was Long Chuyun's creation. She was merely using it to present Buddha with borrowed flowers. However, the little stoic, whose natural disposition was undisciplined and disinclined to explain, naturally wouldn't waste words with her. She cast her a glance before pattering back to the crown prince's side and sitting down. Everyone was speechless. Duan Yu was unbearably amused. He only heard Commandery Princess Ij and berating the crown princess with all her might, as though she wanted to expose something. The fire spirit rhinoceros leaf is the sole ingredient used to concoct the leveled 15 mystic breakthrough pill. It could be said that without this earth-grade medicinal ingredient, it was simply impossible to concoct a level 15 profound breakthrough pill. Empress Dowager, it's better to be cautious, so as to avoid. After that, she purposely stopped speaking, leaving room for other people to imagine. But who didn't know that her following words would definitely be so as to avoid accidentally consuming a fake pill, failing to break through and damaging her body instead. The little stoic creased her brows and suddenly pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from her inner world. Everyone looked at her in bewilderment. Sitting next to her, the crown prince saw everything clearly, and his mouth involuntarily twitched. See you tomorrow. Chapter 1433. Duan Yu swept a glance over and immediately saw what the crumpled, tattered paper in the little stoic's hand was. It was a list of gifts that had been presented along with the gifts. The little stoic remembered that there was definitely something called the fire rhinoceros leaf among them. She flipped through it and finally found that gift list that included the fire rhinoceros leaf with much difficulty. Pursing her small lips, the little stoic stood up and flung that gift list just like that. The gift list fluttered down to the ground. Written on it were the details of the gifts. There were all sorts of miraculous elixirs and rare treasures. Tap, tap, tap. The little stoic was afraid that Yin could not see clearly due to her poor eyesight, so she walked up to Commandery Princess Yin and abruptly slapped that gift list at her face. See for yourself. Father Chiao, who was sitting with the officials, face-bombed in exasperation. Qin Guelu wasn't too sure if other people had seen the details of this gift list, but family head Qin had seen this gift list clearly. There were all kinds of rare medicinal herbs, medicinal pills, and all kinds of defensive artifacts. This was simply unfilial son. Family head Qin glared fiercely at eldest young Sir Qin, who was face-palming. To be honest, the eldest young Sir had presented such a generous gift back then in order to disgust His Highness the Crown Prince. Who would have thought that the little stoic would pull such a stunt for him today and even let family head Chin discover it with heartache? He had presented so many gifts, cough, that although young Sir Omega Kotoku was expressionless, his gaze shifted to the eldest young Sir's face. Who would have thought? This guy had actually presented such a generous gift. Judging from the length of that gift list, there were probably 200 different gifts from beginning to end. TSK, he really was generous. Commandery Princess eyed and stared dumbfoundedly at the large words imprinted in front of her eyes. The 4 words, Fire Rhinoceros Leaf, were clearly written on the gift list. Her face flushed red, and she simply wanted to cry but had no tears. Previously, she had told everyone present with a strong case that it was simply impossible for the Crown Princess to refine a leveled 15 mystic breakthrough pill because she did not have a soul herb like the Fire Rhinoceros Leaf as a catalyst. In the end, she had slapped the little stoic's face in a matter of minutes. Commandery Princess eyed only felt her face burning with pain. However, if she were to take a step back now, it would only make things worse. Every pair of eyes in the hall were staring at her. Most of them were waiting to watch a good show. How could she shrink back? Commandery Princess eyed took a deep breath before saying with a sneer, even if you have something like the Fire Rhinoceros Leaf, even if you are a pill alchemist, this still cannot prove that this leveled 15 mystic breakthrough pill has no problems. Princess, there's no point in saying that. Liang Qingqing interrupted her with a sullen face, whether little junior sister is an alchemist or not, and what her alchemy skills are like, I believe that some of the people here know better than you. That's right. Wei Nanfeng said with a mischievous grin as he waved his fan, this whatever Commandery Princess, the little stoic really is a pretty good pill refiner. The day before yesterday, this little guy gave Bailey's Second Highness a level 13 mystic breakthrough pill. Look today, this person from the Bailey family is already a leveled 13 mystic cultivator. Wei Nanfeng's dunce words immediately caused a huge commotion, and everyone looked towards Bailey Shi. Sure enough, they discovered that this Second Highness had the energy fluctuations of a level 13 mystic cultivator from his body. The little stoic was disinclined to explain and put away that messy gift list before walking back to sit next to the Crown Prince woodenly. Meanwhile, Commandery Princess eyed and was flustered and exasperated. What did she mean? Chapter 1434. She gave 1 prolongation pill, but this stoic face gave 3 to the Queen Dowager? Was he trying to step on her face to demonstrate his prowess? She had spent her entire fortune to buy a prolongation pill for Her Majesty the Queen Dowager with great difficulty, all for the sake of stunning everyone in the main hall today. But now? There was no harm if there was no comparison, but once there was a comparison, it was a critical hit. The stoic face was like a peerless nouveau riche, taking out 3 prolongation pills at the slightest disagreement. It was as though prolongation pills were as worthless as cabbages that could be found on the streets. How could she endure this? How could she endure this? Commandery Princess eyed pursed her stiff lips as she swept a cold glare at the expressionless stoic face. She really wanted to tear apart this expressionless face. She wanted everyone to see her true colors. Hypocritical, vain. This little lady was not as carefree as she appeared on the surface, not caring about anything at all. Her objective today was to ruthlessly slap her aunt's face. Abominable, abominable, abominable. If the little stoic could hear Ian's mental activities, she would definitely turn her nose up at her. You must be crazy. Who would have the free time to tear you down and slap you in the face? Who told you to be so unlucky, giving out a gift that was more or less the same as mine? Who was to blame? She could only admit that she was unlucky. You said that your bottle contains 3 prolongation pills. Then do you dare to pour one out and let family head Chin, the elixir patrician family, appraise it? Family head Chin, who had gotten shot while lying down, looked at that commandery princess in astonishment. What was going on? Why did you drag this old man down with you? Can this old man say that he won't appraise it? Arbor didn't even bother to bat an eyelid and turned his face away, not wanting to talk to a fool. Prince Mo pinched her small hand in amusement before replying on her behalf, as you wish. However, this crown prince suggests that since Commandery Princess En's prolongation pill is to be appraised as well, then family head Qin should appraise it as well. Your Highness is right. The officials all nodded in agreement. Family head Qin, please. Since someone was so eager to embarrass herself, then she had no reason to refuse. Arbor glanced at Commandery Princess En indifferently but did not say anything. Qin Guolu had no choice but to stand up and say, "Since your Highness has spoken, then this old man will appraise it. If there's anything wrong with what I said, please correct me." At this moment, the great king's interest was completely aroused. He hurriedly nodded and said, "Family head Qin, please." Qin Guolu first picked up Commandery Princess En's pill. I already said earlier, this was a middle-grade pill with blue veins. After the Empress Dowager takes it, her lifespan will increase by half a year. Blue-veined pills have their own pill fragrance. Everyone should be able to smell it. Everyone nodded in agreement. At this moment, Qin Guolu picked up the jade bottle that the little crown princess presented. As soon as he opened the lid of the jade bottle, everyone smelled a faint medicinal fragrance that refreshed the heart and mind, lingering in the main hall. It smells so good. Everyone took a deep breath in unison, as if they wanted to completely inhale the medicinal fragrance of the pill out of thin air. On the other hand, Qin Guolu was so excited that he almost jumped up. This is a high-grade purple vein life prolongation pill. If the Queen Dowager consumes it, she can extend her lifespan by 2 years. Right. This kind of high-grade life prolongation pill can only be consumed 3 times in 20 years at most. Wow, there was a commotion below. Everyone looked at the little crown princess in shock. Qin Guolu even cupped his hands in salute at the little crown princess. May I ask, was this pill refined by the crown princess? Chapter 1435. Impossible. En, who had originally wanted to expose the crown princess for using a fake pill to deceive the Queen Dowager, didn't expect that she would be the one to dig her own grave in the end. Commandery Princess En was so infuriated that her heart, liver, spleen, and lungs ached. She only felt that her face was unbearably hot. It was as if everyone was staring at her strangely, as if they were looking at an idiot. She couldn't tolerate this, especially when that family head Qin actually said that this stoic face had personally refined such an impressive high-grade, advanced-level prolongation pill. So, how was this possible? Before the crown princess could speak, Commandery Princess En beat her to it with a high-pitched voice. She swept a glance at family head Qin and said in a mocking tone, "The crown princess's cultivation is so high, so she must have spent a lot of time and energy on it. How could she have the spare time to become an advanced-level pill refinement master? In the entire Seekong planet, there are no more than 10 advanced-level pill refinement masters who can refine high-grade pills, and each one of them is an elderly man on the verge of death. The stoic face in front of you is merely 15 years old. Even if she started learning pill refinement in her mother's womb, there still wouldn't be enough time." Commandery Princess En directly called the crown princess stoic face in her desperation. Everyone was speechless when they heard this. This Commandery Princess used a condescending expression to analyze the truth in front of her. Afterwards, she swept a glance at family head Qin again before saying with a nonchalant shake of her head, "Family head Qin, your words are too laughable." Qin Guolu was momentarily at a loss for words. Indeed, if these 3 advanced-level prolongation pills were truly refined by the little crown princess, then she was really too amazing. Not only did she have great accomplishments in cultivation, but she also had such great accomplishments in pill refinement. This sounded too unrealistic. However, this conceited Commandery Princess's tone inevitably made people uncomfortable. Qin Guolu frowned and said rudely, "Only the crown princess knows best whether or not it is true." Commandery Princess's words seem a bit arbitrary. The little crown princess sat there without saying a word. Only those who were close to her could see that the child was extremely impatient. This Commandery Princess En was unwilling to let go of her, which really made her feel gloomy. The little stoic stood up again and pattered to Qin Guolu. She suddenly swiped her hand, and a large pile of porcelain bottles appeared in front of Qin Guelu. Qin Guelu glanced at her in shock, and his hand trembled as he opened one of them. Life extension pill. The second one was the life-prolonging pill. The third one was still a life-prolonging pill. That the large pile of life prolongation pills made family head Qin's jaw drop. Was this mass production of life prolongation pills? He tapped on the bottles and inspected them. Then, he said in a trembling voice, 100 bottles of life-prolonging pills. Pills. Gulp. Family head Qin realized that he could hear himself swallowing his saliva. 5 pills per bottle. Wow. Gasps could be heard from the hall. Everyone looked at the little stoic in shock. They simply couldn't imagine what kind of courage it took to take out 500 prolongation pills all at once. Is it really okay for you to scare people like this? After a moment of silence, the hall suddenly erupted with shouts. Crown Princess, I'll buy it. I'll buy it, I'll buy it. Are these life prolongation pills for sale? Crown Princess, sell one to me. In an instant, the entire hall had turned into a wet market. Everyone was so excited that they wished for nothing more than to pounce on this pile of pills. Chapter 1436. Crown Princess, I'll pay 170,000 mystic currency to buy a prolongation pill. I'll also pay 170,000 mystic currency. Buy one, I'll buy one. Crown Princess, I'm begging you, sell the prolongation pill to me. Crown Princess, I'll pay 1 million mystic currency. Can you give me 6 prolongation pills at a cheaper price? Scram, you actually want 6 pills. The main hall was immediately filled with the sounds of people shouting prices and quarreling, turning the place into a chaotic mess. However, the little stoic swiftly put away the 100 bottles of prolongation pills and silently swept everyone a glance. That gaze was as disdainful as it could be, and it made everyone feel disgusted to death. That Duan Yu guffawed and waved the raven bone fan in his hand, saying with a grin, "How could Jojo lack your bit of mystic currency?" Everyone thought about it and realized that this was true. Mystic currency wasn't created by the imperial court, so the little crown princess could have as many mystic currency as she wanted with a stretch of her hand. Hence, everyone clamored again. Then Crown Princess, how about this? How about I use a black rank medicinal herb to exchange for a prolongation pill? The little stoic turned to look at family head Qin, who spoke, and nodded reluctantly. What black rank medicinal herb will you use to exchange with me? 50 stalks of interlocking chain herb? This price was high enough, right? That was 50 stalks of black rank medicinal herbs for a high rank pill. No matter how one looked at it, the little stoic crown princess had a better chance of winning. Who would have expected that the little crown princess would shake her head? I already have this kind of black rank medicinal herb. What? Family head Qin widened his eyes and reflexively turned to look at eldest young Sir Qin, who had turned his face to the side. Unfilial son. Completely disregarding the clan's interests and acting willfully and recklessly. If the clan head knew, he would definitely severely punish eldest young Sir, right? Oh wait, the second young Sir was also the one who gave the gift. The two young Sirs should be severely punished together. Family head Qin ground his teeth and then asked, "Wind throat flower?" The little stoic shook her head again. After shaking his head several dozen times in a row, Qin Gulu was so infuriated that he wished for nothing more than to immediately jump over and beat eldest Qin up. In the end, he finally reported a black rank material called Earth Date Leaf. The little stoic's eyes brightened slightly, and she nodded, agreeing to family head Qin's request to exchange 50 Earth Date leaves for 1 prolongation pill. Family head Qin's heart ached, but it was not a loss to exchange for a high-grade life prolongation pill. The rest of the people swarmed over like a swarm of bees, wanting to exchange longevity pills with the little crown princess. However, he was stopped by the crown prince's gaze. Only then did he take a few steps back in embarrassment. Prince Mo led his little wife back to their seats and looked up at the crowd. Those who want to use precious herbs, magic treasures, and forging materials to exchange for longevity pills. When the banquet is over, register yourselves. When the crown princess finds it feasible, she will send someone to inform you to exchange. Only then did everyone excitedly return to their seats. In their hearts, they were all secretly calculating what precious items they should use to exchange for a life-prolonging pill from the Crown Princess. Commandery Princess In, who was standing in the center of the main hall, had been in a daze for a long time. This continued until the Queen Dowager couldn't stand it anymore and coughed lightly, saying, "In, if you don't have any questions, then go down and take a seat." Ijin instantly felt her cheeks burning, and she quickly lowered her head. She quickly strode back to her seat. During the rest of the banquet, Commandery Princess ate and kept drinking silently with her head lowered, not making any more noise. She truly didn't have the face to make any more noise. Chapter 1437. When the great king saw that the atmosphere was gradually improving, he revealed a smile again and gave Empress Zhao a look. Empress Zhao nodded and ordered for the dancers to perform a birthday dance. All the courtiers stood up in unison to congratulate the Queen Dowager on her birthday. After experiencing some minor twists and turns, the birthday banquet finally ended satisfactorily with both the host and the guests thoroughly enjoying themselves. After the banquet ended, everyone swarmed to the Eastern Palace's junior eunuch, Shao 11Z, to register their purchase of the prolongation pill. However, Arbor had long impatiently skipped to the red-clothed girl's side. She bit her lips and reached out to her with an aggrieved expression. Doya hastily gave her a big hug and softly said with tears in her eyes, "Little junior sister, it's really great to see you." Arbor also felt that it was very great to see Doya. She originally thought that the entire holy water sect had been massacred to the point that there was no one left except for her. When she suddenly saw Doya, she recalled the red-clothed girl from another tribe she met on the first day she went to the holy water sect 8 years ago. "You're also here to participate in the holy water sect's entrance examination, right? Don't be afraid, just stay by my side. We're from the western region's Alava tribe. I'm called Doya. What about you? What's your name?" Some memories might seem distant, but when she thought about it now, it was as if they happened right before her eyes. They were so fresh that they could be touched. She thought that Doya had long died in that 6 prefectures massacre. She thought that her corpse had long dissipated from the world without a trace. That was because when she finally collected the sect's corpses alone in a daze, she only counted the corpses of 500 disciples. There were too many people who self-detonated in the sect that day, so the life lantern shadows in the ancestral hall were also incomplete. She hadn't seen everyone's life lantern shadows. The little stoic wasn't sure whether Doya was among the group of people who self-detonated. Arbor only felt sad and aggrieved at this moment, and some negative emotions firmly bound her. "Junior sister, don't be sad. If Martial Uncle's spirit is in heaven, she also wouldn't want to see you like this." Doya reached out and gently patted her back. "Come, let's talk outside." Seeing that some people in the main hall had finished registering and kept glancing at them, Doya pulled the little stoic's hand and led her outside. Actually, they didn't have any ill intentions. It was just that they couldn't help but take a few more curious glances at the stoic-faced crown princess. Prince Mo had been paying attention to his wife's movements, but he did not go over to disturb her reunion with Doya. "Your Highness, Yin just ran away with her tail between her legs." Hui Feng appeared beside Mo Lien and reported with a grin. The good show just now was really a little exciting. Ian had been publicly slapped in the face by the crown princess several times in a row. Even he felt his face hurt for her. Mo Lien's gaze gradually chilled. "She and the vassal prince of Annan are getting married the day after tomorrow?" "That's right, the 10th of June. Mo Lien smirked. "Keep an eye on him. Make sure nothing goes wrong. Let the two of them get married smoothly." "Yes." Hui Feng nodded vigorously. Doya pulled her little junior sister along and found a slightly more remote waterside pavilion in Brocade Garden, pulling her into the pavilion. At this time, it was already deep into the night, and the water surface swayed under the moonlight with a gentle breeze. The two of them sat on the bow-shaped bench while leaning against the railing. The Alava tribe's clansmen were all standing far away outside the waterside pavilion, and no one came to disturb the senior sister and junior sister. Chapter 1438. Little Junior Sister. Doya tightly grasped her hands and said in a slightly choked voice, "I knew you would be fine. Senior Sister Doya, can you tell me what happened to you that day?" Doya nodded. "That day, after we bid farewell to you and left Shisha Valley, Aunt Master instructed me to stay outside Shisha Valley. Aunt Master had already guessed that you would follow us out at that time. She wanted me to keep you in Shisha Valley no matter what method I used and not let you return to the sect." Doya's expression was pained as she recalled that day. "I wasn't willing. I wanted to return to the sect with my master. But in the end I was still kept behind. I waited for you outside Shisha Valley for 3 days, but I didn't see you come out. I thought that Shisha Valley's Valley Master must have blocked you somehow. So I planned to make a trip back to the sect. But on the way back, when I crossed the great swamp by myself, I was surrounded by perils and almost lost my life. Senior Sister." The little stoic couldn't bear it anymore and threw herself into her arms with a wah. The two sisters hugged each other and wept bitterly, as if they wanted to vent all of their grievances, pain, and resentment in this lifetime. "Thankfully, the summoning talisman you gave me came in handy at that time. I finally wasn't fighting by myself. With a summoned beast accompanying me, I finally ran out of the great swamp after more than 10 days. But when I returned to the sect, I only saw thistles and thorns everywhere, and there wasn't a single person in sight. There was nothing left." Doya's eyes were red, and tears streamed down her face. She pounded her chest and said, "I don't know how I managed to hold on at that time. I searched everywhere on the ruined mountain. There wasn't a single survivor. I didn't even find a single one of their corpses. I'm too useless." When Doya said this, she covered her face with both hands. Arbor took out a handkerchief to wipe her face and shook her head. "Senior Sister, don't say that." Doya exhaled deeply and said, "I wanted to seek revenge from the 6 prefectures, but I was alone and weak and I didn't even know where to find them. My heart is filled with hatred, but I know that it's impossible for me to take revenge alone. So I returned to my tribe. I want to make my tribe stronger. But all these years, we've been in constant conflict with Aikido in the Western Wastelands. In order to preserve his strength, he had no choice but to hide and wait for an opportunity to become stronger." At this point, Doya's face was filled with dejection as she lowered her head. "But the resources in the Western Wastelands are scarce, and the strength of our clansmen is far behind that of the Aikido tribe. Reality is just so frustrating." Doya turned her head and pulled out a bleak smile at Arbor. "Even if you risk your life and want to climb the peak step by step, without that opportunity and resources, it's useless no matter what you say. During this time, I remembered that Master mentioned that your home is in Shijio City. I was worried about you, so I thought of going to Shijio City to look for you and try my luck. Maybe I'll really find you. At that time, we sisters won't be alone anymore. If there's anything, we can discuss it. Unfortunately, I didn't find you in Shijio City. After that, the Aikido tribe kept pressing on. I was exhausted from running for my life, leading the people of our tribe to hide here and there. Heh, Junior Sister, am I very useless?" Chapter 1439. Arbor forcefully shook her head again and again. Doya looked at her and smiled again. "During Northern Mo's Queen Dowager's birthday this time, I recalled your relationship with Mo Kingdom's Crown Prince. I only came here with the idea of seeing if I could meet you, but I didn't expect. Junior Sister, I'm really happy. My decision this time was finally correct. These years, Aikido has always chased after us. On the way here, I was still thinking about what to do if we encountered those Aikido barbarians to minimize our tribe's losses. But I didn't expect that the entire journey would be so smooth and that we wouldn't encounter those Aikido lunatics." When Doya said this, a flowery smile blossomed on her face. She tightly grasped Arbor's small hand and said, "I'm guessing that Aunt Master, and the others must be blessing me from the heavens, allowing us to reunite here." Arbor nodded vigorously. Doya smiled and rubbed her small head. For a moment, it was as if they had returned to the past. The sisters cried and laughed for a while before wiping away their tears and restraining their emotions. Doya suddenly gnashed her teeth and said, "Junior sister later, did you see that beast Yi Lingmin?" Arbor shook her head. "After that, I didn't see her at all. She actually disappeared without a trace after causing such a huge disaster. After the sect was massacred, she didn't even show up. If I meet her, I'll definitely kill her and clean up the sect." The little stoic didn't say anything and only lowered her small head listlessly. "Junior sister, you mustn't sympathize with her. Although she's your third senior sister, she's also the main culprit behind the sect's destruction." Doya understood this little fellow too well. Although she had a cold face, her heart was warm, especially toward the sect. She had an unforgettable feeling. Think of eldest senior sister Su Shanshan, second senior sister Shui Xiao, eldest Ant Master, and your two Ant Masters. Who didn't leave innocently? Junior sister, we mustn't be soft-hearted toward this person. Because all of this was caused by Yi Lingmin. Even if us senior and junior sisters join hands to kill her, she only has herself to blame and can't blame anyone else. Doya gazed icily at the surface of the water before her before turning around to firmly grasp Xiao Mu's small hand. Xiao Mu subconsciously nodded her small head. Doya calmed her emotions and suddenly took out a letter from her inner world, placing it in the little stoic's hand. "Junior sister, Aunt Master left you a letter before she left. This letter has been in my hands for 8 years. Today, I can finally give it to you." Xiao Mu impatiently tore open the letter and read it line by line, word by word. The letter read, "Disciple, let me guess. You are reading the letter while scolding me for being a big liar." "Yes, Master is a liar. Master has indeed deceived you this time. If there was a 1 in a billion chance, Master would never abandon you. Every time I think of you being alone in the future, I feel as if a knife is being twisted in my heart. But disciple, you have to promise Master that even if you're the only one left in the sect, you have to live on well. During your most difficult time, Master feels guilty for not being able to stay by your side. But you have to believe that you have to face any obstacles by yourself and walk through them with large strides. On the path of cultivation, what we cultivate is both the body and the heart. Only with a strong heart can we face anything fearlessly in the future." Chapter 1440. If you must go to the 6 prefectures continent, then go to Shuntian Prefecture's Lava Mountain Range first and enter a top-notch academy to study for a while. You only need to show the pine jade bracelet I gave you to the headmaster of the top-notch academy, and he will naturally take good care of you on my behalf. I know that with your personality, you definitely won't let the matter of the sect go. But my disciple, you must remember that before you become strong, you must not speak lightly of revenge. Also, don't act rashly without understanding the situation of the 6 prefectures. Only by preserving your strength will you have a future and hope. Everything about the Holy Water sect will be entrusted to you. The final signature was, "Miss your master, Murong Sun." The little stoic's gaze paused on the word, "Miss your master." Unwittingly, tears splashed onto the letter, nearly blurring the word master. She hastily blinked and wiped away the moisture on the letter. She blew on it before folding the letter and putting it away. She muttered to herself, "Big liar." She originally thought she would never cry again, but she didn't expect her tears to come so abruptly when she saw Murong Sun's letter. Doya wrapped her arms around her shoulders and patted her comfortingly. "Little junior sister, what did eldest Ant Master say?" The little stoic mentioned the top-notch academy that Murong Sun mentioned in her letter to Doya. Could the headmaster of this top-notch academy be eldest Ant Master's old friend? Doya exclaimed in surprise. "I don't know." Arbor shook his head. "There's still a month before the normal passage between the 6 prefectures and the lower star domain opens. I plan to go up the passage and go to the 6 prefectures continent." When Arbor said this, he recalled how the prefecture lord of Shuntian Prefecture intended to control his life, and new and old grudges surged into his heart. "I won't let a single one of those people off." "All right, I'll go with you." Doya looked down at herself. "I only heard that to enter the passage, one must have sensed the power of the 5 spirits. Unfortunately, I still haven't." Arbor blinked. "There's still a month's time. Senior Sister Doya, don't worry. If you really can't, I'll bring you to the 6 prefectures continent first. It'll be much easier to sense the power of the 5 spirits there. After all, in the lower starfield, it was basically impossible to sense the origin energy of the 5 spirits. Currently, Senior Sister Doya's cultivation was a level 12 mystic cultivator, so she still had to raise it a bit more. The little stoic tilted her head and glanced at Doya before taking out several bottles of pills and a handful of talismans from her pocket and stuffing them all into Doya's hands. Senior Sister, here are 2 bottles of energy-gathering pills and a level 13 mystic breakthrough pill. Try and see if you can raise your profound strength to the 13th level within this month. At that time, when we go to the 6 prefectures continent, you can also break through to the spirit realm in the shortest time possible. If I haven't reached the 13th level of cultivation, how can I go to the 6 prefectures continent? Doya muttered in confusion, and then she was overjoyed as she reached out and held up a pile of medicinal pills. So many talismans? After you activate the talisman with your blood, it will form a mystic guiding talisman array to help you cultivate. Alright. Junior Sister, there's still a month left. I'll definitely work hard. My clansmen are. Don't worry, I'll get someone to take good care of them. Doya nodded with a smile. The 2 of them looked at each other and read a trace of determination and hope in each other's eyes. 6 prefectures, just you wait. Chapter 1441. After dismissing everyone, Mo Lien waited for his wifey in a corner of Brocade Garden. He knew that Jojo and his senior sister should have a lot to talk about after reuniting after a long time, so he was not in a hurry. However, he flung off a transparent chain on his wrist and sighed. Give me 1 more month. Yu was a smart child. In these 2 months, he had continuously arranged all kinds of political affairs for him. Although he did not say anything, this child had probably already guessed his objective. He would leave, but not right now. However, this heavenly law was very annoying and wanted to drag him away from time to time, that he reckoned that the seal inside his body would not last another month. Sigh, he had to continue holding on even if he couldn't. Mo Lien abruptly turned his head, and without even looking, he directly kicked out. After letting out a delicate cry of surprise, Commandery Princess eaged and fell to the ground in resentment. The sharp pebbles on the ground had scratched out faint bloody marks on her hands. Your Highness. Commandery Princess Yin tears came on a whim. Unfortunately, other than his wifey, any other woman's tears were worthless in the Crown Prince's eyes. Commandery Princess Yin was wearing a peach-pink chiffon that could barely conceal her beautiful figure. She knelt on the ground with a tear-stained face and resentful eyes. Why was that man still indifferent towards her even though she had lowered her status and pride to throw herself at him? She had no more time. She was going to marry into the vassal king of Anan's estate the day after tomorrow, but she was unwilling. She was also completely helpless, which was why she took the risk in desperation to get close to this man who was as handsome as a god. She wanted to become his, even if it was as a beloved concubine. Right now, her entire body was covered in that kind of drug. She wanted him to fiercely possess her. She had already thrown caution to the wind and was already shameless. She only wanted to become His Highness the Crown Prince's woman, but why? Why was His Highness the Crown Prince still so disdainful towards her even at a time like this? Could it be that she was not beautiful? If it was any other man present today, they would not be able to restrain themselves from pouncing on her after seeing her attire that was as beautiful as peaches and plums. But only His Highness, that heartless and callous His Highness. If she's so unbearably lonely, then I'll send her to consummate her marriage with the vassal prince of Anan in advance. The Crown Prince brushed off the white powder on his sleeves. After some thought, he tore off a piece of his sleeve and threw it on the ground. Yes, Your Highness. Hui Feng immediately walked up nimbly and picked up Commandery Princess Yi. No. When Commandery Princess Yi heard the man's heartless words, her entire body started trembling. Her eyes contracted in horror as she shook her head repeatedly and screamed. She didn't want to become the vassal prince of Anan's woman. Although the vassal prince of Anan was considered handsome and the vassal prince of Anan's estate was considered influential, the vassal prince of Anan Cho-fu couldn't even compare to a single finger of His Highness the Crown Prince. She, Commandery Princess E, had sworn to become the most honorable woman in the world. She could not let the vassal prince of Anan ruin her like this. Don't. Commandery Princess Enyan shrieked in horror, but Hui Feng directly knocked her unconscious with a karate chop. After picking up this pretentious woman, Hui Feng turned around and jumped onto the roof. By the time Arbor arrived, this farce had already completely ended. There was only a faint smell of aphrodisiac left in the air. Chapter 1442. What's that smelly smell? The little one puffed up her cheeks and grumbled unhappily. She bounced over to Crown Prince's side. The little Crown Princess wrapped her arms around his waist and burrowed her head into his embrace. The Crown Prince's heart was about to be melted by her. He hugged her back and cried out in grievance, "Xiao, when you weren't here just now, a female scoundrel came over and wanted to drug me, but I kicked her away." Arbor looked up at him, her eyes round and bright. "Where is she?" She was going to kill her. She could tell that this drug wasn't anything good just by smelling it. With such strong effects, it wasn't good for the body. She hurriedly fanned her hands in front of Crown Prince to help him get rid of the smell of the drug. "Does it hurt?" "It hurts. My whole body is burning up." Crown Prince took the opportunity to rub against the little one. "What should I do, Jojo?" Arbor rolled her eyes and pushed his handsome face away. "Stop pretending. You have the drug in your body. Unless it's a neurotoxin like the devil's grass, all other drugs won't work on you." "Burning up?" Big Liar still wants to trick Jojo. Moreover, as his drug improves, neurotoxins like the devil's grass won't be able to do anything to him in a while. "Sigh, my wife is too smart. I can't fool her." Mo Lien looked at her helplessly. "Jojo, have you finished talking to your senior?" Arbor looked at him with bright eyes. "Mo Lien, there's something I need to tell you." "Let's talk on the way." Crown Prince Mo grasped her soft, petite hand and pulled her onto the royal carriage, heading straight for the Eastern Palace. Arbor thought for a moment and said, "Mo Lien, the normal passage between the 6 prefectures and the lower star sector will open at the beginning of July, right?" Mo Lien was startled when he heard this, and then he nodded. "Are you planning to go to the 6 prefectures continent?" Arbor nodded her head vigorously. Whether it was for public or private reasons, she had to find the Shuntian Prefecture's prefecture lord to settle accounts. She had to find him to settle the grudges between her past life and this one. "All right." Mo Lien nodded without hesitation. Since the little one had already made her decision, he would support her unconditionally. Plus, with her talent of 3 out of 5, going to the 6 prefectures to cultivate would only be beneficial to her. If it's a normal passageway, as long as one's profound strength is at the 13th level or above, and is able to sense even a trace of the 5 spirits' power, they will be able to go up. Mo Lien said with a smile. "You've already met the requirements, so it won't be difficult for you to go up. At that time, the normal passageway will open above our Mo Kingdom capital. The 3,000 steps that appeared were called the Stairway to Heaven. You just have to climb up. For someone like you who already possesses the power of the 5 spirits, this is not difficult at all." Arbor looked at him with bright eyes and shrank into his arms. "Let's go together? Or do you need to take care of some matters before coming to find me?" The tiny Northern Prince Mo couldn't keep Northern Prince Mo. With his cultivation, he definitely couldn't stay here for long. Rather than letting heavenly law drag him away, he might as well obediently go up himself. Prince Mo's breathing stopped slightly. He gazed at his little wife in his arms tenderly and said, "Jojo, there's something I must tell you as well." I. Just as the words were about to come out of his mouth, Prince Mo couldn't help but chuckle as he gazed at her large, bright, curious eyes. He lifted his arms and hugged her, saying, "It's fine, I'll go with you. I'll accompany you wherever you go." Chapter 1443. Boom. A white light flitted across the horizon, turning the dark night into day in a split second. Why is there thunder all of a sudden? Arbor looked up at the sky in bewilderment. Prince Emo looked up at the pitch-black night before lowering his gaze and squeezing Arbor's small hand silently. Jojo, HM? I will always be by your side. Emo Lien patted her head. Arbor nodded. She hugged his arm and leaned against him, squinting her eyes as she gazed at the stars in the distance. In this lifetime, my life will no longer be controlled by others. Arbor muttered to herself as she hugged his arm. She tilted her head and rested her head on it, looking like she had fallen asleep as the carriage moved slowly. Emo Lien turned to look at her before simply pulling her into his arms and adjusting her into a comfortable sleeping position. It was a quiet night. Under the stillness of the night, the towering palace walls in the distance were dimly illuminated by the dusky palace lanterns. The carriage wheels rolled across the corridor paved with yellow marble, exiting Splendid Garden and heading for the Eastern Palace. The two people's figures drew out two oblique shadows on the ground. The starlight shone, stacking together in a sticky manner. The vassal king of Anan's estate. It was late at night. Inside vassal Prince Chofu's room, it was currently the time of spring. Just now, someone had thrown Commandery Princess Ian inside from outside the window, giving Chofu a false alarm. When he chased after her, she had already disappeared without a trace. However, he saw that the beauty's clothes were half exposed under the lamplight. She was incomparably beautiful, and most importantly, she had even thrown herself into his arms. In a moment of impulsiveness, Chofu carried this woman, who would be marrying into the vassal king's estate the day after tomorrow, into the back room. In any case, she was the one who initiated it, and they were about to get married, so Chofu didn't care that much. Everything was fine at first, right? The two of them hugged each other and rolled around in bed. It was nothing much. Most importantly, that Commandery Princess Ian actually called out the word, "Your Highness the Crown Prince," when the vassal Prince of Anan was very pleased that it was as if a bucket of ice water had been poured on young Master Chow's 80 feet tall fire. Fuck, he had spent so much effort in the middle of the night, and this woman still thought that the person she had slept with was the Crown Prince? This was intolerable. No man would be able to tolerate this. There was a fucking green grassland above him, and the horses were galloping. Vassal Prince Cho immediately slapped the dazed Commandery Princess Ian awake. Unexpectedly, after the princess woke up, she was even worse off. When the princess discovered that her virginity, which she had preserved for 17 to 18 years and wanted to offer to the person she admired, had been ruined by this vassal prince of Anan. It was over. The princess let out a mournful shriek that was comparable to a nightingale's mournful wail, and it immediately jolted everyone in the vassal prince's courtyard awake from their sweet dreams. The princess immediately pounded the vassal prince of Anan's chest with her small fists as if she had gone mad. She even kicked him off the bed, throwing a tantrum that the vassal prince of Anan's flock of concubines even thought that a thief had broken into the vassal prince's room. When they barged in after knocking on the door, they saw this strange scene. The vassal prince had fallen naked on the ground, and he was currently curled up with his back arched. He was clutching his thing, and the veins on his forehead were bulging from the pain. Meanwhile, that naked whatever Commandery Princess was currently kneeling on the bed. When she saw so many women rushing in, she immediately let out another hoarse shriek. Chapter 1444. Ah! This shrill scream immediately attracted a large number of royal guards from outside the courtyard. The vassal prince of Anan's face had turned green from anger. He pointed shakily at the door and shrieked, "Close! Close the door! Close the door!" Slap. The concubines quickly closed the door for the vassal prince. The vassal prince stood up stark naked. His entire body was trembling from the pain, and he was so angry that he had lost all face. He walked up to the Commandery Princess and roared, "Fin! Blurg!" Commandery Princess Ian immediately spat out a mouthful of filth. It all landed on the vassal prince of Anan's face. The group of concubines looked at each other in bewilderment. Ian! The vassal prince of Anan was nearly disgusted to death. He wiped his face, but he still felt that his hands and body were emitting a foul stench. The vassal prince let out a furious roar and took out an ox whip from his inner world with a flip of his hand. He then swung it directly at Commandery Princess Enan's naked body. Commandery Princess Enan screamed as she dodged. She suddenly lunged forward like a madwoman and grabbed the vassal prince's head, biting at his chin. Ow, ow! The vassal prince screamed in pain. Who the hell knew how miserable he was today? Did this Ian go crazy? She wasn't the one throwing herself at him. She was the one who took the initiative to invite him to roll in the sheets, all right? What was wrong with her now? She was going back on her word after doing it. As the two people overlapped, the vassal prince lost his balance and fell backward, causing Ian to sit heavily on his abdomen. Subsequently, the vassal prince's expression changed. His eyebrows were crooked as he bared his teeth and screamed, "Ow!" It felt like that thing was about to be crushed. Go to hell. The naked Commandery Princess Ian abruptly punched the vassal prince's left eye heavily. The vassal prince fell backward in response, and the back of his head smashed heavily onto the floor tiles with a thump. Cough, cough. Arbor didn't even know when he returned to the Eastern Palace last night. When he woke up, Arbor lowered his head and looked at himself. He was nestled in the big bed made of agarwood, clean and tidy. Did little Mo secretly change her clothes yesterday? Miss, you're awake now. Peony smiled as she lifted the curtain and walked in. You slept well last night, didn't you? It's okay, Arbor said embarrassedly, looking around. Where's Emolien? His Highness has been teaching the 12th Prince how to handle government affairs these days. Both of them are probably still in the Great King's imperial study. Arbor nodded and stole a glance at Xiao Yao. He coughed softly and said, Xiao Yao, when did I come back yesterday? About 1 o'clock in the morning. Xiao Yao walked up with the clothes in her hands with a chuckle. However, before she could get close to the bed, the clothes in her hands had already been taken away. When she looked back, she saw that maid Haitang walking up methodically and reaching out to help her miss get up. Yet Xiao Mu rolled over and sat up, jumping off the bed with a stomp of her legs and running to the side. Haitang quickly chased after her with the clothes and advised seriously, Crown Princess, you have to get used to Haitang's existence. In a few days, Xiao Yao will be going back to prepare for her wedding. His Highness the Crown Prince instructed Haitang to do everything personally in the future and not let the Crown Princess get involved if she can help it. Chapter 1445. Arbor. Thank God I'm not a useless person. Xiao Yao was also behind him and she couldn't help but twitch her lips. His Highness must be out of his mind to actually send Haitang to the Crown Princess's side. Then you can just send Peony, Duwan or Camellia and Osmanthus over. Crown Princess, you can't touch this. Haitang, come here. Crown Princess, don't touch that. Haitang, come here. Crown Princess, put it down. Crown Princess, don't. The young Crown Prince Consort pattered out the door and slammed the door of the Eastern Palace's bedchamber with a loud bang. With a deafening sound, Xiao Yao pursed her lips speechlessly. As soon as she turned around, she saw Haitang glaring at her with an honest and wooden expression. Big Sister Xiao Yao, His Highness has instructed you to take your leave starting in 3 days, right? Why aren't you leaving? Xiao Yao, Sister Xiao Yao, this is His Highness's order. Can you not always add words like you and oh when you're talking? It made her subconsciously and inexplicably add these 2 words. Xiao Yao wiped her sweat and looked at her worriedly. Suddenly, she had a flash of inspiration and said, His Highness didn't send you to the Crown Princess's side on purpose, did he? The Crown Prince couldn't be thinking of using the wooden and somewhat hilarious Haitang to amuse the Crown Princess every day, right? Xiao Yao's lips twitched speechlessly. The more she thought about it, the more likely it was. How would I know? Xiao Yao's outstretched hand hung down speechlessly. She really wanted to ask Haitang if she could stop adding suffixes at the end of every sentence. Someone told me that it's more cordial to talk like this. Xiao Yao's head was full of black lines. Arbor was annoyed to death by this Haitang. He walked all the way out of the door. She entered the small garden from outside the palace walls and strolled for a short while before she saw two plump eunuchs leading the Aikido tribe's young master ACI and his group. They were currently walking towards her. When Arbor saw this, he immediately turned around and left. She just came out to relax. There was no need for her to argue with a group of people. However, in Assie's eyes, her action of turning around and running away looked like she had a guilty conscience. He immediately shouted, "Stop right there." Arbor didn't listen to his nonsense and ran away without a trace. Yas was so angry that smoke almost came out of his head. This little guy was simply too detestable. "Big brother Yas, why did you call her?" Akir couldn't hide the unbearable jealousy in her eyes. She wasn't stupid. She could see that there was an unusual flame leaping in Yas's eyes toward that little slut, and she especially wanted to extinguish these two flames that were slowly rising. "Don't talk nonsense." CI glared at her coldly. Then, his figure flashed and chased after Arbor. Akir angrily stomped her feet. "Big brother Ali, look at him." Ali also had a displeased expression on his face. Big brother was too concerned about this northern prince consortum. Arbor ran very far away in one breath before stopping. She reached out and took out a teleportation talisman. When she thought about it, this teleportation talisman wasn't reliable. Who knew where it would teleport her? Forget it, let's just leave it at that. Yas, that bull, probably wouldn't shamelessly follow me with his manly tone. The little stoic withdrew her small feet and circled around to another garden, planning to stroll around casually. However, she saw two dejected little royal maids walking towards her. One of them was holding a pot of wilted begonia. Chapter 1446. Sigh, what a pity. Nanny Feng even summoned the famous gardeners among the people into the palace. But this Jasper begonia still can't be saved. Her Majesty the Empress Dowager is going to be in a bad mood. We should be more careful these few days. Nanny Feng told us to throw this pot of flowers far away. This place is far enough, right? Sigh, throw it away, throw it away. The two of them put down the pot of Jasper begonia and walked away with their heads drooping and sighing. Arbor ran to the Jasper begonia and looked at it carefully. Suddenly, she reached out a small, jade-white hand and covered the withered and curled leaves at the top of the begonia. In just a moment, the leaves seemed to have been reborn. They unfolded and turned from yellow to emerald green. Every tender leaf emerged from the stem of the flower. Suddenly, a flower bud emerged from under the emerald green leaves, followed by a second, a third. That several flower buds rolled into a ball and bloomed in unison. Who followed behind, stared blankly at the small figure with her back facing him. At this moment, he only saw a patch of green blooming in front of his eyes. The light green begonia flowers intertwined with the dark green leaves, creating a visual feast. Arbor retracted her small hand and tilted her head to look at the Jasper begonia that was blooming in high spirits. She reached out and hugged it in her arms. "Send it back to grandmother." The little fellow made up her mind. She turned around and was about to head to the Longevity Palace when she almost bumped into ACI, who was walking quickly over. "What are you doing?" Darling Xiao pursed her lips, looking like she didn't want to see him, and took a step back. Assie's pupils constricted slightly. He saw that the little girl was wearing a seaweed blue dress and holding a pot of blooming begonia flowers. However, her snow-white face was not inferior to the pot of begonia flowers she was holding. "Are you deaf? I told you to stop, but the more I told you to, the faster you ran?" ACI quickly averted his gaze and bellowed at Xiao Mu in humiliation. "You're purposely pretending that you didn't hear me calling you, right?" Arbor threw him a cold look. "Excuse me. You haven't answered my question." ACI reached out angrily, wanting to grab her wrist. However, Xiao Mu stomped her leg over, ruthlessly kicking his black boot. "Shut up. Who had the time to talk nonsense with this person?" Yas laughed instead of getting angry. "Do you really think that no one can control you?" After saying that, he reached out to grab Arbor. Arbor only felt a strong and powerful force rushing towards him. He was slightly startled and dodged to the side, a trace of anger appearing in his eyes. Originally, she didn't want to argue with this person, but he insisted on finding trouble with her. Since that was the case, then train him. Arbor simply reached out and stored the jasper begonia into his inner world. He summoned the feral from his conscious and leaped into the air to strike Yas's head. "You woman! You're still coming?" This scene evoked a strong sense of familiarity in Yas's heart. Bastard! ACI met the attack with a mystic energy palm strike, but it was instantly neutralized by the little stoic's feral. When the two mystic energies collided, considerable energy ripples rose and fell in the small garden. Arbor reached out to press down a defensive boundary, which protected the nearby plants from harm. A flame as thick as a wrist suddenly sprayed out from the feral and burned toward Assie's chest without warning. "It's over, time to wake up." Chapter 1447. This was probably Arbor's smoothest usage of wood spirits to date. With a wave of her small hand, a dozen or so wooden vines shot out from her sleeves. They snaked forward like a dozen whips, lashing out at ACI at the same time. ACI had to dodge the fiery lines from the feral on one hand and evade the entanglement of the wooden vines on the other. This caused his movements to slow down a bit. Arbor took advantage of this opening and quickly summoned the startled swan dagger from her conscious. She suddenly aimed at Assie's chest and stabbed. Yas quickly dodged, barely avoiding the shockingly fast attack. However, the startled swan dagger was too fast. Even though he dodged quickly, the trace of mystic energy on the startled swan dagger had already cut open Assie's heavy clothes and left a faint cut on his chest. Yas glanced down. When he raised his head again, there was a trace of a sneer between his proud brows. "What? You want to cut open my clothes and admire my body? If that's the case, you should have said so earlier." Arbor only thought that this person was sick, and quite sick at that. With a raise of her hand, a dozen or so vines shot out from her sleeves and wrapped around Assie's legs. He narrowed his eyes and suddenly stomped on the ground. The earth beneath his feet immediately roiled, erecting 3 earthen walls in the blink of an eye. He forced Arbor into the earthen walls and suddenly reached out to grab Arbor's shoulder. Arbor couldn't help but fly into a rage. She threw a backhanded punch at one of the earthen walls. This punch contained no less than 500 kilograms of force. It directly caused the earthen wall to crack a few times and the layer of earth to rustle and fall. It was at this moment that Assie's fingers were about to touch her wrist. Arbor kicked his hand away with a flying kick. She glared at him coldly, her almond eyes blazing with fire. She suddenly activated the teleportation talisman and her figure instantly disappeared from Assie's side. Te was stunned for a moment before he hurriedly spread out his consciousness to sense where she was. He couldn't help but be shocked when he saw that the little fellow's figure had actually moved several hundred meters away. However, this short distance was not enough to stop him from quickly catching up. After Arbor threw out the 3 teleportation talismans, he discovered a fatal problem. If she was fighting with an enemy and the enemy's speed was extremely fast, then this teleportation talisman would only be able to solve the problem for a moment and would not be able to completely get her out of danger. That was because the teleportation talisman only had a range of 1,000 meters. Although it could move infinitely, it had no sense of direction. There was no guarantee that it would move out and then move back. When Yas caught up again, he saw the little girl in blue standing along the towering palace wall, staring at him with cold, unblinking eyes. Assie's handsome face darkened as he sneered, "Run! Why aren't you running anymore? I thought you could run really fast." Yas suddenly felt a slight wind behind his head. His entire body tensed as he abruptly shifted to the side. However, it was too late. A metallic fist had already landed on his back as fast as the wind. Ci grunted and turned his head in a daze. He subconsciously met the golem's icy fist. After a hoarse eagle cry, a sharp eagle king swooped down from the sky and grabbed the golem's head. However, the golem didn't care about the eagle claw at all and directly threw a punch at ACI. Bang! Chapter 1448. Assie's body swayed slightly, and he couldn't help but curse inwardly that he had almost fallen into the hands of a golem again. That golem was too strange. Not only were its movements smooth, but it also seemed to have unparalleled thinking ability and could come up with a sneaky move from time to time to make him suffer. Arbor stood on the side and watched Big Treasure and Assie's exchange. His figure suddenly moved, and an icicle flew through the air toward Assie's handsome face. Ci, who was dealing with the golem, was slightly startled and couldn't help but be flustered. As he dodged, that icicle cut Assie's arm again. Arbor creased her brows, seemingly very dissatisfied that her all-out attack only left a bloody mark on Assie's arm. Compared to several years ago in Shuang City, this guy seemed to be much stronger. It was a bit inconceivable. Even if he ate tonics every day, he couldn't possibly advance this quickly. After all, when she fought with ACI in Shuang City, he was like a cripple and was completely suppressed and beaten up by her back then. There was something strange about this guy. However, she also had many fortuitous encounters these past few years, so it didn't mean that ACI couldn't have them too. Big Treasure, attack his lower body. At Xiao Mu's command, the golem immediately swept its leg and kicked at Assie's legs. ACI sneered. When he turned his head, he saw that little stoic swiftly dashing over. With a wave of her sleeve, a white mist suddenly pelted his head and face. Not good, the damn girl was going to use a malicious move again. He hastily covered his mouth and nose and blocked his 5 senses, trying his best not to inhale that white mist. However, what was the meaning of that wound on his arm suddenly feeling so painful? Assie's expression changed, and he rushed to Arbor's side with a large stride. He raised his palm, and a copper bangle shot out. Arbor's small hand quickly retracted, but she couldn't stop the copper bangle's speed. Just as that copper bangle was about to wrap around her wrist, a peach-colored figure swayed and appeared next to Arbor. With a flick of her sleeve, a powerful force shook Assie's hand away. At the same time, that copper bangle was tossed into the air with a ding. Assie's eyes changed. He suddenly tore open the void and summoned, "Qian, come out." The huge black shadow instantly filled the space. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal looked at the huge shadow that had suddenly appeared in front of him. It had bull horns on its head and a body like a giant python. His expression changed slightly. Ancient python bull? Why would a sacred beast like the ancient python bull appear here? While he was distracted, he heard a whoosh sound. That copper cuff descended from above and abruptly wound around Xiao Mu's slender wrist, trapping her firmly in place at once. "Young master!" The golem Arbor roared. Just as he was about to pounce forward, he saw Yas take a misstep and close in on Arbor's side. His hand suddenly pressed down on Arbor's left shoulder. "Damned girl, you poisoned me again." Yas coughed twice, feeling as if the pain all over his body had multiplied countless times. Not only was the wound on his arm unbearably painful, even the cut on his chest was starting to hurt fiercely. ACI also had a copper bangle on his hand. His other hand moved to Arbor's neck and squeezed her slender neck. He sneered. "You're certain that I won't kill you, right, HM? Unfortunately, you're still trapped by my dual-star immortal spirit bangle, aren't you?" Chapter 1449. Assie's lips curled into a cold sneer. "Once the dual-star immortal spirit bracelets encircle you, all your strength will be sealed. How is it? Do you feel terrible without those sharp little claws and fangs?" Acia couldn't help but glance at her smugly. Bam! At such a close distance, the little fellow directly raised her violent little fist and punched him in the eye. How the fuck was this possible? The dual-star immortal spirit bracelets should have already sealed all the mystic energy aura on this damn girl. She shouldn't be able to use any strength, so why was her fist still so hard? It was practically like jade and directly smashed his eye until it was swollen. ACI reached out his left hand, and the hand encircled by the copper bracelets forcefully tugged at the little girl's right wrist. He saw Arbor staring at him expressionlessly with a stoic little face, but she didn't move at all. She had activated a Vajra talisman and a gravity talisman for herself, so it would be strange if ACI could drag her. Right after that, Arbor sent ACI flying with a flying kick. However, Their wrists were locked together by the copper bracelets, so if she didn't run after ACI when he flew, her wrists would be pulled until they were close to breaking. The unbearable pain was unbearable. Undo it. Darling Xiao was furious. Her left fist encircled with the Vajra talisman struck Assie's face like raindrops. Stop it, stop it, stop it. Hearing the commotion, Ali and Akir, who had rushed over after hearing the news, ran over one after the other. Their eyes widened in horror as they pounced forward to separate the two people. Especially Akir, when she saw Darling Xiao squatting next to ACI and forcefully punching his face, she almost went crazy. She hugged Assie's body and pulled him back with all her might. ACI groaned in pain. His hand was about to break from being pulled by this stupid woman. Arbor was in even more unbearable pain. She was anxious, angry, hateful and angry, and a ruthless glint appeared in her eyes. Her startled swan dagger swiftly flew out and stabbed straight at Akir's neck, communicating with her mind. Ali cried out in alarm and pulled Akir over. The startled swan dagger brushed past his shoulder, leaving behind a deep bloody gash with a swoosh. It could be seen how fast and cold this dagger was. The young crown princess wanted to take Akir's life directly. What kind of deep hatred is this? How could you be so ruthless to Akir? You vicious woman. Ali was like a lion whose tail had been stepped on, roaring angrily. I want all of you to die. Arbor bellowed angrily. The little stoic's face was ablaze with viciousness, and the substantial killing intent in her eyes instantly shut Ali's mouth. He was extremely alarmed. As it turned out, the little stoic wasn't an expressionless person. When she got angry, she was really quite terrifying. Kill them all. Arbor roared. An extremely thin white snake suddenly burrowed out of the paradise and transformed into a huge python, heading straight for Yas, who was sitting on the ground, to devour him. The gaping mouth caused the Yas siblings to feel fear in their hearts. No, don't! Akir screeched. Sensing that its master's life was in danger, the ancient python bull hastily retracted its tail, abandoning the venerable peach blossom immortal who was tangled with it. It roared angrily and swiftly slithered toward the little white snake. Little Mingming quickly dodged. This ancient python bull had already entered the initial stage of growth, so its strength was naturally much higher than the little white snake that had just entered the holy beast level and was only at the initial stage of infant stage. Chapter 1450. If they fought it head-on, not only would both sides suffer, the little white snake might even lose its life. Even the venerable peach blossom immortal had to be careful when dealing with this ancient python bull, let alone an infant great void netherworld serpent. Fortunately, this ancient python bull had yet to reach the middle stage of its growth stage. Otherwise, even the venerable peach blossom immortal would be in trouble. Compared to humans, sacred beasts' physical bodies and strength were incomparable. Roar! The ancient python bull's roar stunned everyone present. Even Qiuqiu, Qingwan, and the others who had just run out also stopped in their tracks and looked at it cautiously. Cough, cough. ACI half squatted on the ground and pushed the python bull's head away, preventing it from attacking Arbor. I'm fine. Arbor tugged at the bronze bracelet on his wrist. His eyes were red with anger. Suddenly he shouted, "Let go, let go, let go. Let go, let go, let go." His voice became louder and louder. Arbor shook the bronze bracelet on his wrist in agitation, as if it was being grabbed by a ghost. He tried to break free with all his might. There were red marks where the bracelet connected to his wrist. On his snow-white hand, it was a ghastly sight. The venerable peach blossom immortal sensed that something was wrong with the little fellow's emotions. He quickly came to her side and grabbed her little hand. Jojo, Jojo, be good. Don't panic. Jojo, there's a way. There's a way. Yas simply sat cross-legged behind the python bull and endured the pain all over his body. He coughed twice and couldn't help but laugh out loud. What can I do? Unless our minds are connected, there's no way to undo it. The venerable peach blossom immortal turned his head and shot a cold gaze at the... Shut up. He stepped forward and kicked Assie's chest. This kick was so fast that the python bull could not stop it in time. When the kick landed on Assie's chest, he felt his blood churn and blood trickle from the corner of his mouth. The mountain-sized python bull straightened its body and glared at the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal with its ferocious eyes. Disgusting! 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 Arbor's small face scrunched up. His eyes were red as he shook his wrist. Seeing that there was no way to take that thing away from her wrist, her expression turned serious. She suddenly recalled the startled swan dagger and cut it off her wrist. However, a spiritual item like the startled swan dagger had already gained sentience. How could it bear to cut off its young master's wrist? The dagger was about to touch her wrist when it paused. Shocked, the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal hurriedly grabbed her right hand, which was wearing the bronze bracelet, and exclaimed, "No." JoJo's Dual Star Immortal Spirit bracelets are no ordinary profound armaments. They can be big or small. Even if you cut off your wrist, they can still fit on your upper arm. On the other hand, Yas, who was sitting on the ground with his wrist raised high, looked at the fierce and decisive little girl in front of him with a sour feeling in his heart. Just now, she actually wanted to break her own wrist without hesitation, just because she didn't want to be tied to him. Why was there a sharp pain in his heart? Where did this uncomfortable feeling come from? Did she hate him so much so that she was willing to harm herself just to leave him? Ah! Arbor screamed uncontrollably. At this moment, there was no one in front of her, Akir, or Ali. She only saw herself tied to a stone bed, her hands and feet firmly bound to the stone bracelets. Chapter 1451. She only saw Fan Chioha smiling gently at her. He raised the tool in his hand, cut open her body, and rummaged through her dantian for something. Ah! Arbor, who had lost control, stared straight ahead in horror. There, the person sitting there was no longer Yas. In Arbor's eyes, ACI was Fan Chioha, Akir was also Fan Chioha, and Ali was still Fan Chioha. Many Fan Chioha were grinning maliciously at her in front of her. She frantically swung the bronze bracelet on her wrist and screamed, Fan Chioha, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you, Fan Chioha. Ah! Jojo. Emo Lien, who had heard the news, couldn't believe what he was seeing. When he left the bedchamber in the morning, his baby was still fine. She was sleeping quietly and adorably while hugging the blanket. What was going on now? It was as if she had suddenly contracted bipolar disorder. She was mutilating her arms uncontrollably. If the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal hadn't grabbed her and firmly held her trembling hands, the little fellow might have fractured her arms. Jojo. Emo Lien hurriedly rushed over and hugged her in his arms. He hurriedly comforted her. Jojo, it's okay, it's okay. Jojo, look at me. Jojo, I'm Lien. Jojo. Arbor's eyes were as deep as a vast expanse of smoke. They were so dark that it was as if she had fallen into an abyss. Emo Lien didn't say anything. He still hugged Arbor with one hand and raised a ball of purple flames with the other. He threw it directly at ACI. The rising purple flames condensed into a ball and pounced straight at Assie's head. What this attack wanted was his wretched life. Big brother! Ali screamed. Without waiting for him to step forward and protect him with his life, the mountain-like boa lifted its head. Roar! The python bull swallowed the purple flame in one gulp. Then, its expression changed again and again. It roared a few times before opening its mouth and spitting out the flame. However, this ball of flame was no longer purple. Instead, it was suffused with traces of gold. With a potch sound, it landed at Emo Lien's feet and melted a blue stone brick on the ground. Ancient python bull. Emo Lien sneered and looked up at Yas. Did you bully my Jojo with this animal? Bah? Who's bullying who? You'd better figure it out. Yas laughed instead of getting angry. At this moment, Arbor, who had been quiet for a while, began to fling his wrists as if he had gone crazy. His eyes trembled slightly as he muttered to himself, Don't tie me up, I'm going to kill you. Jojo. Lien reached out and grasped his wrists tightly. She stared at the large red marks on his wrists, and a trace of heartache flitted across his eyes. Jojo, don't be afraid, don't be afraid. We'll definitely find a way to undo this, Jojo. Lien impatiently comforted the little fellow in her arms. A black flame quietly lit up on her fingertips. A sudden clap of thunder flashed across the horizon. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal's eyelids twitched slightly. He hurriedly reached out and pressed down on Lien's restless hand. Don't be rash. Don't attract the heavenly Tao. Besides, burning this fellow to death is even more troublesome now. It's even more impossible to remove the twin star immortal spirit bracelets. I feel that what Jojo hates the most is not being tied up with this fellow, but the bracelets on his wrist. Chapter 1452. Was that really the case? The dejected Assie's ears twitched involuntarily when he heard the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal's words. He suddenly looked up at them. However, the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal and Lien were not looking at him. Instead, they were staring at the copper bangles on their hands. The copper bangles looked very ordinary. Between the two copper bangles was a copper rope that was not too long. However, this pair of seemingly ordinary copper bangles was actually a spirit weapon. Lien frowned as she pondered over a solution. Does the little fellow still have some inner demons? The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal asked as he looked at Prince Mo thoughtfully. If that's the case, it's not good. If the inner demons are allowed to grow to a certain stage, it will greatly affect the speed of her cultivation in the future. It might even affect the refinement of her mental state. Lien was silent for a moment before she said coldly, "No. Forget it if you don't want to talk about it." The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal turned to look at Arbor. Take her back first. However, when Lien picked up Arbor and saw the burden beside her, she wanted nothing more than to burn this person to ashes with her sacred fire. The group returned to the Eastern Palace in silence. Everyone in the palace knew about the huge commotion that had happened just now. After setting Xiao Mu down on the brocade divan, Lien hastily covered her wrists with a blanket to prevent her from staring. Assie's entire body was in pain. The little fellow had poisoned him with a poison that infinitely increased the pain in his nerves. Although he had a poison-repelling fruit in his body that could cure hundreds of poisons, this neurotoxin was not ordinary. Even if he wanted to neutralize it, it would take time. The process was excruciating and painful, but ACI did not make a sound. Only cold sweat kept breaking out on his head. The python ox, which had shrunk to the size of a chirp, knew that its master was in a bad situation. It circled around Assie's feet with a gloomy expression. ACI endured the pain all over his body. Just as he was about to sit down on the couch, Missouri Lien, who could not bear it any longer, kicked him, causing him to fall to the ground. Ayo! The python ox roared angrily. The copper rope wasn't long to begin with, so Arbor's little hand moved slightly. Seeing that he was about to pull on her wrist again, Lien hurriedly dragged ACI a little closer. ACI felt like he was a tool that was being dragged around by that damned man. Jojo, don't be afraid. If worse comes to worst, I'll just reforge this spiritual weapon. Inject a trace of your aura into it and let it become your spiritual tool. That way, you will definitely be able to unlock it. Lien pondered for a moment and felt that this was the fastest and most convenient way to unlock it. Arbor stared at the beam above his head with a pair of clear black and white eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. It was just that his silence made everyone feel a little stifled in their hearts. It was as if he had suddenly lost his vitality, making people feel very uncomfortable. Inner demons must be eliminated. This can't go on. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal couldn't help but say, "Do you know what inner demons are?" He fled to the middle 6 prefectures. Lien's eyes flickered. But I think he's not the only one. What do you mean? The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal asked, stunned. You're right. Inner demons must be eliminated. No matter who it was, if they became Jojo's inner demon, only death awaited them. No matter how many people there are, they must all die. Chin Exine suddenly woke up from her dream. Her demonic eyes widened as she stared blankly at the dark night sky outside the window. That dream just now was so terrifying. See you tomorrow. Chapter 1453. In the depths of Chin Exine's eyes, a dim green light flashed. He hurriedly sat up and walked to the window. He pulled out a thin silk robe and looked at the night sky outside the window in a daze. What? It's already dark. Pushing open the door, he had just taken a step out when he saw a figure about his height appear in front of him. The figure flashed past his eyes and then passed by. Dark purple clothes, a tall figure, and that back view, at first glance, was exactly the same as his own figure. What's going on? Could it be the same as last time, that he was still in a dream and had not escaped? Omega Kotoku stared blankly and hurriedly chased after him. Taking a deep breath, Chin Exine followed the person in front of him into an underground dark room. This dark room was divided into several sealed cells along the stone wall. At a glance, it was pitch black and seemed to have no end. When the person in front of him walked past, suddenly, an unkempt face covered in grease appeared at the small window of the iron door. He shouted hoarsely, "Let me out, let me out." The person in front of him walked past without looking sideways. Chin Exine's footsteps paused. When he approached the window, he subconsciously looked back. His line of sight met with two broken eyes with their eyeballs dug out. Slightly startled, he hurriedly walked forward. But before he reached the last sealed cell, he saw the figure slowly walking over with something in his arms. Chin Exine stared blankly and stood in the long, dark corridor. As the other person slowly walked closer, he saw his appearance clearly and his heart thumped. Sure enough, it's me. If that's the case, he should still be in a dream. What kind of dream is this? Why can he see it so clearly? It's like he's looking at his past self as a bystander? He saw that when the other him in the dream walked over with someone in his arms, he did not notice his existence at all. When he slowly passed by him, Chin Exine could not help but subconsciously turn his head to take a look. With this look, he was stunned on the spot. What did he see? Although that little face was thin and sallow, and the eyes were sunken and lifeless due to hunger. But that pair of clear black and white eyes, and that skinny and lusterless little face, was clearly. Mu Xiaobao himself? No, it was Arbor. Why is Arbor here? At this moment, Chin Exine's heart seemed to be gripped by something, and she felt extremely uncomfortable. He even wanted to shout out loud, as if that would release the pent-up frustration in his chest. However, the scene in front of him dissipated like water ripples, and he felt dizzy. When he opened his eyes again, the scene in front of him shocked him. Mai Zhou's section break, rumble. The wooden wheelchair was pushed to the shore and stopped. A woman in a light green casual robe with a long skirt that reached the ground touched the unique bun on her head and walked to the beach. She narrowed her eyes and looked at a large cargo ship coming from afar. She chuckled and said, "The ship is here." Arbor could only move her little head. The woman was standing against the light. She only felt that the 5 fortune jade hairpin inlaid with large pearls on her head was emitting a dazzling luster under the sun. Then she looked at her own tattered clothes and her dried-up hair drooping sparsely on her head. He was so envious of this beautiful lady. Why did she make her life so terrible? Chapter 1454. Hey, the cargo ship is about to reach the shore. I'll send you up in a moment and let you leave this place as you wish, okay? The woman giggled and turned around to look at her with a gentle and charming gaze. Don't worry, I'll see this through to the end. I'll send an old nanny to take care of your food and lodging in the future. The woman smiled seductively and clapped her hands several times, allowing an old nanny in green with drooping eyebrows to come to her side. As long as you obediently disappear from Axian's side, I'll promise you anything. I guarantee you won't have to worry about food and clothing in the future. The woman giggled and looked at the cargo ship slowly reaching the shore. She gave the old nanny in green with a look. The old nanny nodded knowingly and pushed Arbor's wheelchair toward the ferry. 2 boatmen came over to unload the goods. They bowed and bowed in front of the woman for a while before receiving a bulging money bag. They beamed with joy and said, "Young miss, you also know that women have heavy energy. We boatmen are most afraid of inauspiciousness and generally don't like to bring women along. Hey, you guys send him to Sichuan in a good way. You can ask for as much money as you want." After saying that, the woman took out another money pouch and threw it to the boatman. "All right, Miss Sure, we will definitely send that miss safely to Sichuan." Miss Sure touched the Rui hairpin on her head and nodded with a smile. She watched as the old nanny in green pushed Arbor onto the ship. When they reached the shore, she exhaled and said faintly, "I hope you never come back, little pet." The wheelchair scraped across the deck. Several crew members winked at each other and their gazes followed Arbor's wheelchair to the deck. Cough, cough, cough. The old nanny in green coughed a few times and stopped after pushing Arbor onto the deck. The cargo ship had already moved. This ship was 2 stories high and the deck alone was very spacious. Gusts of cold wind blew against her body. Arbor was wearing a thin and pockmarked spring garment. Her eyes were empty as she stared blankly at the sparkling surface of the sea. What a beautiful sea! She hadn't seen it for many years. Being able to die in this place is also pretty good, Xiaomu muttered to herself. The green-robed old woman was startled. "What did you say? How did you know?" "Madam, can you please throw me into the center of the sea? This way, my body shouldn't be washed up on the shore again." Arbor said faintly, his face unconsciously showing a trace of relief. "Do?" The green-robed old woman couldn't help but be stunned. "Do? Since you knew that our second miss tricked you onto the boat to take your life, why didn't you ask for help? Why didn't you beg for mercy? Why are you still willing to board the ship?" Arbor uttered a meaningless monosyllabic word and didn't say anything. He closed his eyes as if he was tired and took a deep breath. How long had it been since he breathed in this fresh and slightly salty air? "Aren't you afraid of death?" The green-robed old woman was startled. She didn't know why, but she felt a little uncomfortable. In their China, a 20-year-old girl's life was just beginning. The average lifespan of a person in China could reach more than 200 years, even if they were ordinary trash. This 20-year-old girl in front of her was like a dry well. There was no trace of life in her eyes. Chapter 1455. Apologies. Second miss gave this old servant a death order. The blue-clothed elderly nanny clenched her fist and looked at Arbor with a bit of guilt in her eyes. "I can't disobey." Arbor tilted her head and glanced at her. "You should be a servant of the Sure family, right? Although I don't know you, I'm very grateful. Don't hesitate." The blue-clothed elderly nanny's heart inexplicably trembled. She didn't know what to say now. A young lady whose life had yet to blossom actually had such a heavy death wish. A powerful faint golden halo of power emerged from the blue-clothed elderly nanny's fist. It was just that this golden color was closer to a faint yellow and was very faint. Arbor closed her eyes and calmly waited for death to descend. She had finally waited for this day. She finally didn't need to struggle at death's door to survive in this world. She could go see little Six Zheng, Hua Gu, Captain Gao, and the others. How wonderful! The blue-clothed elderly nanny silently apologized in her mind. Her palm swiftly struck out, and it looked like it was about to land on the back of Arbor's head. A streak of purple-red lightning suddenly enveloped this part of the world. It enveloped the entire cargo ship. What? Several boatmen quickly jumped up from the deck of the ship, gazing blankly at the distant sky. They saw a huge dragon rapidly moving and tumbling through the clouds. Enveloped in bursts of purple mist, it sped toward them at lightning speed. Arbor's expression abruptly changed, and she almost immediately urged, "Hurry, hurry and do it." The blue-clothed elderly nanny inwardly complained incessantly. Currently, her entire body was enveloped by an enormous pressure, so how could she still have the strength to do anything? Haha. Forget about doing anything, it was extremely difficult for her to even lift a finger right now. She was completely helpless. A purple figure landed on the deck at an astonishing speed. His entire body was emitting traces of chilling anger. Arbor's pupils contracted, and her body unconsciously tensed up in a defensive posture. All of you must die. The purple-clothed man's cold gaze swept over the green-clothed old nanny and the crew. Suddenly, he flew over with a palm strike, directly sending 3 of the crew members flying, heavily crashing into the ship's mast. The man was like the Grim Reaper. With just a light step, he arrived in front of the other 2 startled crew members. Without waiting for them to kneel down, a pair of hands reached out and grabbed their necks. Like pinching the necks of chicks, with 2 cracking sounds, their necks were crushed at the same time. After he quickly circled around the ship, there were no longer any survivors among the crew. The 2 people on the deck, one standing and one sitting, looked at each other and saw a trace of fear in each other's eyes. However, the old granny in green clothes did not understand. Why was there such panic and fear in this young lady's eyes? Shouldn't she be happy that someone finally came to save her? But her expression actually revealed a deep sense of despair. What was the meaning of this? The old woman knew that her life would end here. Young master. But she knew that she could no longer explain anything for herself. That cold hand grabbed her head, and the old woman trembled all over. No, don't search my soul. I'll talk, I'll tell you everything. Young master. The purple-clothed man grabbed the old woman's head and searched through her memories. Then he suddenly turned his head. Wait. Chapter 1456. He smiled at Arbor instead of getting angry. You want to die? Is that so? He bent down and approached her, reaching out to pinch her chin. His smile was very gentle, but it made Arbor's heart turn cold. Xiao Qiao, did I say you could leave? I already said that I'll take good care of you in the future. If I don't force you to call me master, what else do you want? The man's eyes surged with emotions as he stared at her in frustration. I won't marry the Sher family's second Mississippi. I've already promised you everything. What else do you want? Don't push your luck. Xiao Mu abruptly opened her mouth and bit down hard on his slender finger. The force that burst forth from her teeth seemed to wish for nothing more than to bite his finger off. Roar! Seeing that its master was attacked, the purple heaven thunder dragon swooped down from the sky like a reflex. With a sweep of its tail, it directly pulled Arbor and her wheelchair out of the deck. No! Qin Xian's pupils shrank, and he suddenly sat up from the bed. Wiping the cold sweat off his forehead, he looked at the dark night outside the window. He almost couldn't tell if he was still in a dream or had returned to reality. Damn it! He clenched his fists tightly. Thinking back to the moment when Arbor was pulled out of the ship by Zi Xiao, he seemed to have seen a trace of relief in her eyes. She did it on purpose. She deliberately let Zi Xiao attack her, deliberately seeking death. Why? Why didn't she want to live? Qin Xian's mind was in a mess now. Some memories that were both familiar and unfamiliar to him kept popping up in his mind. They were abrupt and natural, as if they were his memories to begin with. He suddenly jumped off the bed, pushed open the door like a madman, and rushed into the night. He kept running until a faint light seemed to appear in front of him. If this dream wanted him to pick up the fragments of his memories piece by piece, then the memory in front of him should also be a part of his memories. Bam! The door was kicked open, and Qin Xian's expression changed. Didn't you say that you didn't have any improper thoughts about him? But why did he insist on bringing you back? Wouldn't it be fine if you just boarded the ship? Why did you come back? Why did you come back? A good-for-nothing like you, who can't even take care of yourself, what qualifications do you have to follow the young master? Ridiculous. Following the woman's questioning, the sound of a whip pierced through the air and lashed out at the frail little body. There was already a pool of blood on the ground. Arbor was curled up on the ground, waiting for the whip to fall. Why wasn't she dead yet? She was sent flying by the lightning dragon. Even with such a huge force, her body was actually not torn apart. Fan Chuho was right. Her body was very strange. Qin Xian rushed over, wanting to reach out and pick up the girl who was like a broken doll. But when his hands passed through the other's shoulders, he realized that he was still in a dream. He stared blankly at the girl who was curled up on the ground like an injured animal. Her eyes were deathly still. However, it was this deathly stillness that deeply burned his heart and even the depths of his soul. "Stop hitting me! Stop hitting him!" Chin Exen subconsciously shouted at the woman holding the whip with all her might. Chapter 1457. Jojo? By the time Emolian realized that something was wrong, Jojo's body was already very cold to the touch. It was as if his entire body was covered in a layer of ice, and the touch of his skin was bone-chilling. "Don't be afraid, it's okay, Jojo." Emolian's hand lit up with a wisp of fire spirit, and she injected it into Arbor's body to help her stabilize her chaotic breathing. Arbor was muttering, "You can't kill me, you can't kill me." Whip. Why does it hurt? If it hurts, why aren't you dead? Why aren't you dead yet? It hurts, whip. Arbor curled herself into a ball, half bent on the brocade couch like a small shrimp. Her delicate brows were deeply furrowed. Emolian panicked when she heard this. "Jojo, who hit you?" She seems to have been possessed by a nightmare. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal looked disdainfully at the flustered Emolian. He directly used a knife to land on the back of Arbor's neck, causing her to pass out. Emolian wanted to flare up, but she realized that Jojo had suddenly stopped making a fuss. He no longer uttered those heart-wrenching murmurs. He calmed his heart, and with a flick of his sleeve, swept her wrinkled little face. He used a sleeping drug, causing her to fall into a deep sleep. A pair of sharp phoenix eyes abruptly shot toward Isai, who was sitting on the carpet beside the brocade couch. Assie's heart couldn't help but skip a beat at the murderous intent in that gaze. "No, it's not like that. I really didn't do it on purpose." She couldn't help but mutter, sigh. "I just saw her running all day long. When I wanted to talk to her, she ran away too. But I really didn't know that her reaction would be so big. If I knew it would be like this from the start, I definitely wouldn't have done it." Sigh. There was no point in saying all this. Things had already happened. Right now, he regretted it more than anyone else, alright? How could he have known that Xiaomu's reaction would be so big? After he put that thing on her wrist, she felt like she was suffocating, and her entire person was delirious. What exactly triggered her? Emolian sent a palm strike over but was stopped by the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal. "If you beat him up, you'll drag Jojo down with you. Wait a minute, let's take off the dual star immortal spirit bracelets first." After saying that, he turned to look at Yas and pretended to kick him in the chest. ACI couldn't help but be startled and shrink his neck. "Hurry up and tell me the truth. How do you want to undo it?" Two people have to inject their spiritual power at the same time. Yas confessed honestly. But now Jojo was unconscious. How could he inject spiritual energy into him? What kind of spiritual power? Earth spirit, Yas said listlessly. "I'm at the 9th level of spiritual soil, so the other person has to be at least at the 9th level of spiritual soil. Otherwise, they won't be able to undo the dual star immortal spirit bracelets. When Xiao Xiao wakes up, you will immediately assist her and undo this damned thing." Yas was silent. "Are you deaf?" All right. Stop arguing." The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal hurriedly pushed away Emolian, who couldn't wait to attack ACI. "I think this fellow should have understood. It's fine. Since there's a way, it can naturally be undone. When Jojo wakes up later, just don't provoke her." ACI couldn't help but want to look at the little person curled up on the brocade couch. Emolian's figure flashed and blocked his view. "Get away." Chapter 1458. ACI couldn't help but feel a little angry. He lifted the copper bracelet on his wrist and glanced coldly at Emolian. "For now, Scram." Emolian couldn't help but feel exasperated. She really wanted to burn this bastard to ashes. This ridiculous man had caused his Jojo to be captured by a nightmare. She must have recalled that annoying nightmare again and been frightened by some of the things in the nightmare. Xiaomu really did sleep a bit deeply this time. It wasn't until dawn that she showed signs of waking up. When Emolian saw her little hand move, she hurriedly moved to the side of the brocade couch and looked at her. Jojo. Arbor fluttered her long eyelashes and opened her eyes. For a moment, she looked blankly at Emolian. She wanted to raise her hand for a hug, but when she moved her wrist, she heard the frightening sound of the chain clanking. Don't be afraid, Jojo. Don't worry, it's fine now. We've already found a way to undo the twin star immortal spirit bracelets. Seeing the little girl's expression change slightly and about to turn hostile, Emolian hurriedly went forward and hugged her, patting her back comfortingly. All right, let's undo the twin star immortal spirit bracelets now. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal grabbed ACI, who was sitting on the floor, and pulled him to the little girl's side. Arbor glared at him angrily, then turned her head and shrunk into Emolien's embrace. ACI looked on unhappily. Suddenly, he pulled hard on the copper bracelet on his wrist. What are you doing? Emolien quickly grabbed the other end to prevent him from pulling hard and hurting Arbor's wrist again. You're asking for a beating, aren't you? The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal kicked ACI in exasperation. Don't play tricks. Hurry up and undo it. Even if you don't think for yourself, you should think for your clansmen. I looked coldly at the two of them, then turned to look at Arbor. I didn't do it on purpose. What's the point of saying all this now? It doesn't matter if you did it on purpose or not. You scared Jojo. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal rolled his eyes at Ace. All right. Hurry up and undo it. Cut the crap. I didn't do it on purpose. Yas stiffened his neck and glared at Arbor solemnly. Arbor didn't even bother to look back at him. He hid in Emolien's arms with a displeased expression and didn't say a word. Yas only felt that his heart was suffocating. He wanted to say something else, but when he came into contact with North Prince Mo's cold and ruthless gaze, he couldn't help but be startled. We guarantee that if you continue to speak nonsense, those clansmen that came with you, including your sister-in-law, will all die within my northern Mo's borders today. Heh, are you trying to start a war with the Aikido tribe? So be it. The Crown Prince smiled disdainfully at him. A loser isn't worth mentioning. You lost to me once, so you will lose to me 100 or 1,000 times over. If the Crown Prince became willful, he was an existence that even Northern Mo's great king was afraid of. Sai shut his mouth and stood up to walk to Arbor's side. He raised his hand. Let's begin. 2 streams of pure wood spirit energy were injected into the copper rings from their respective bodies. With 2 clicks, the copper ring in Arbor's hand instantly sprang open and landed in Emolien's hand. A cold glint flashed in his eyes, and the spiritual weapon was instantly devoured by the black fire in his hand, turning into a pile of dust. ACI couldn't help but be slightly alarmed. He glanced at Emolien before turning to Arbor and saying, "Count it as my rashness this time." Fragmented consciousness. Chapter 1459. But you were in the wrong too. If you hadn't run off the moment you saw me, I wouldn't have. Arbor and Emolien turned to glare at him at the same time. ACI took a deep breath. Okay, it's my fault. To make it up to you, how about this? Don't you need a medicine man? I can be your medicine man. My body is strong anyway. I'm not afraid of you drugging me. Assie's eyes lit up as he suddenly spoke. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal looked at him as if he was an idiot. Bring it on. ACI closed his eyes and made up his mind. He made up his mind to let Arbor vent his anger. He wouldn't cry out in pain. Arbor couldn't be bothered with this person. He glanced at him from the corner of his eyes, then shrank back into Emolien's arms. Scram! Emolien kicked him in annoyance. She carried the little fellow and walked into the inner room. Hey, stinky girl? ACI frowned, extremely displeased. Why was she looking at him with disdain when he wanted to be a medicine man? Big brother. Ali walked quickly to his side and said angrily, Big brother, you've been beaten up so badly by them. Are we just going to let this go? He looked at his big brother's handsome face, which was now bruised and swollen. There was even a bruise on his eye. Ali was furious but had nowhere to vent it. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal sat on a round-backed chair at the side. He crossed his legs and glanced at him. "What, do you want to continue?" "Master, don't talk to this person." The little python bull swam around Assie's legs and gave the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal a wary look. This person was clearly an immortal supremacy. Why would he appear in the lower star domain? He was different from a sacred beast that had been contracted by its master. It was too strange for an immortal supremacy to appear in such a place. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal sat there calmly and even asked the palace maids to brew a pot of tea for him. A certain immortal supremacy, who was holding a teacup and enjoying himself, chuckled and gave the little python bull a look. "What, are you waiting for me to make you leave?" "Bah!" The little python bull immediately swam around ACI. Master, let's go." This place did not welcome them, so why should they stay and provoke others? Yas hesitated for a moment and glanced at the inner chamber. "Big bro, what are you looking at? Let's go." Ollie couldn't help but pull Yas back. "Big brother Yas, since they've already chased us out, why are we still standing here?" Akir asked in a neutral tone. "What do you know?" He hadn't reconciled with the little girl yet. He was worried that if he left like this, the next time they met, the little girl would be even colder to him. It's all that North Prince Mo's fault, he's such a busybody. No, there was also this celestial venerable in front of him. He was even more annoying. Yas reluctantly walked out of the Eastern Palace's bedchamber. He turned his head to take a look, his expression somewhat irritated. At this time, Arbor, who had been carried into the inner room by Emolien, was leaning on him with a sad expression, his little head drooping listlessly. "Jojo." Emolien carefully applied the ointment on the red marks on her wrist. She lowered her head and asked softly, "Are you feeling better? Does it still hurt?" Arbor shook her little head and turned to look at him. "He's sick." Emolien nodded. "That's right. He's very sick." Although Emolien said that, he was deep in thought. Could it be that Yas had not forgotten his Jojo all these years? Just thinking about it gave him a headache. Why did he meet such a fool? Chapter 1460. Jojo. Emolien placed the little fellow on his lap and looked at her seriously. "Were you trapped by a nightmare?" Arbor nodded and reached out to hug his neck. She rubbed against him like a small animal and said pitifully, "Someone whipped me. It hurts." Emolien's eyes flashed with anger. "Who?" Arbor shook her head. "I couldn't see her face clearly. But if I see her again, I'll definitely recognize her." Emolien patted her back twice and carried her to the bed. "Don't think too much. We'll make them pay back what they owe us. You should sleep for a while more." At this moment, the little fellow looked dispirited and especially tired, which made Emolien's heart ache immensely. "Jojo, I'll only be at ease if you're fine." Emolien murmured softly as he half laid her down on the bed with him. He reached out to stroke the furry back of her head. "Sleep, I'll watch over you." Arbor tilted her head and laid on top of him. She reached out to hug his waist and snuggled into his arms. "You don't have to go to court today." "No, I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay here and accompany you." Emolien patted her lightly. "Alright, don't talk. Be a good girl and go to sleep. We'll talk when you're fully rested." Xiao Mu mumbled a muffled "lich." She rested her head on his chest and heard his steady and powerful heartbeat. Soon, she drifted off to sleep. Emolien gently held her little hand. He wanted to use the medicine to treat the red marks on her wrist, but when he looked at it, he was stunned. Her little wrist was white and tender and there was no trace of the red marks. TSK, the little fellow's recovery ability was a bit shocking. Even if he had his own medicine, he might not be able to recover so quickly. Crown Prince Mo's thin lips lightly kissed her small, fair wrist before he shifted his body and slid out from under the little fellow's body. He then placed her properly on the bed and covered her small stomach with a thin blanket. Emolien flicked his finger and a defensive boundary appeared in the bedroom. He then quickly pushed open the door and left. "Take care of this person on the way back." Emolien waved his hand indifferently, and the dozen or so hidden figures quickly left. Hui Feng appeared next to the crown prince with his head lowered and said softly, "Lightning's team knows they didn't protect you well, so they've already returned to Marshall Mountain to receive their punishment." When he thought of Lightning's unlucky brothers, Hui Feng couldn't help but twitch his mouth. Crown Prince Mo's gaze flickered, and he nodded apathetically. "Got it. Bao Yi and the others?" "Bao Yi is still reliable, Your Highness." When Hui Feng thought of that big brother Ao, he couldn't help but praise him. The Crown Prince said with dissatisfaction, "Have Mei Yi lead the team and eliminate them. Just tell us what mystic weapons and spirit weapons you need." "But what if young Master Assie's group doesn't return so quickly and they might have to stay in our Guanlan city for a while?" Hui Feng asked weakly. "Then let them live for a few more days," the Crown Prince said with a cold expression. "When the time comes, I'll have Little Seven accompany them to deal with that ancient python bull. Leave the rest to Mei Yi and the others. They must not leave a single one alive." Hui Feng silently lit a candle for ACI in his heart. "Good luck to you, young Master ACI." Chapter 1461. Hey, that kid isn't an ordinary person. You'll be in big trouble if you kill them so rashly. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal chuckled as he glanced at Emo Lien with a cup in his hand. "You're so long-winded." The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal rolled his eyes. "I'm reminding you out of the goodness of my heart. You don't know how to appreciate my kindness. After all, that kid has something like a poison-repelling fruit in his body. You should know very well that there's no such thing in this shabby minor starfield. That young Master ACI should be from the upper 3 continents, right? His identity is probably not simple. I just don't know if he's from the Divine Continent, the Tsang Continent, or the Underworld Continent." The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal winked with a smile. "By the way, how's my Jojo doing now?" "Who's your Jojo? How annoying." Emo Lien glared at him fiercely. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal looked aggrieved. "She summoned me. I'm hers and she's mine. If she's not mine, then whose?" "You." He couldn't be bothered to say anything more to this scoundrel. The truth was that Jojo was his wife. It was that simple. At the same time, in a dilapidated temple on Shilua Street, hundreds of masked men in black had gathered here. "Master has ordered that the operation will be brought forward. Everyone is to prepare for the operation in 3 days." The middle-aged man under the metal demon mask issued the latest order with a cold expression. The Rakshasa princess led a group of Rakshasa ghost sect disciples and stood respectfully at the very back. They lowered their heads and didn't dare to make a sound. "Everyone, go back and rest for now. Wait for orders." After the man with the metal demon mask finished speaking, he vanished from the dilapidated temple like a wisp of smoke. The Rakshasa princess heaved a sigh of relief. The man's presence was too oppressive. She almost couldn't stand still just now. This was the difference between the great spiritual realm and the ordinary spiritual realm. However, the Rakshasa princess had just heaved a sigh of relief when she suddenly realized that the man with the metal demon mask had appeared beside her. "Rakshasa." There was a hint of coldness in his voice, causing the Rakshasa princess to shiver inexplicably and nod repeatedly. "If this operation fails again, I think there's no need for you to exist anymore." Princess Luosha's pupils constricted. She nodded and stuttered, I will not disappoint you, Hallmaster." A cold light flashed through the eyes under the iron ghost mask. He nodded and said, "Rakshasa, don't disappoint me again." Then he disappeared from Princess Luosha's side. This time he had left for real. However, even after he left, Princess Luosha still felt weak all over, unable to muster any strength. It was as if she had been drenched from head to toe by the rain. Her legs were so weak that she couldn't move at all. Hundreds and thousands of men in black disappeared from the ruined temple. Princess Luosha clenched her fists. Last time, the rice distribution incident didn't cause many casualties, which caused her master's plan to fail again. That Prince Mo was truly a troublesome opponent. He could see through her master's plans time and time again. She hoped that everything would go smoothly this time. Speaking of which, Why didn't her master take care of such a strong opponent once and for all? This thought flashed through Princess Luosha's mind, but she didn't dare think about it anymore. How would she dare guess her master's thoughts? Chapter 1462. But the Raksha princess simply couldn't figure it out. At the very least, Master's underground village had been destroyed by Prince Mo's men several times in a row. It was impossible for Master not to resent such a great loss. Especially that time in the Mystic Beast Forest. In the end, such a large deployment was easily destroyed by the people Crown Prince Mo sent. Their organization's largest underground base on Seacombe planet was subsequently disbanded. It had to be known that they had used the news of the Phoenix Egg with great difficulty to lure so many people to the Mystic Beast Forest, all for the sake of Master had suffered at the hands of this Prince Mo 2 or 3 times in a row. With Master's personality, it was impossible for her to continue lying low. This time, she would certainly teach the Northern Prince Mo an unforgettable lesson. When she thought of this, the Raksha princess curled her lips into a gorgeous yet callous smile. Pop, pop, pop. Firecrackers rang out as the vassal prince of Anan and commandery princess Eanyan's lively wedding ceremony proceeded rapidly in a strange atmosphere. Commandery princess Eanyan was a young lady who had married out of the palace, and she was also the Queen Dowager's adopted granddaughter in name. As a result, her dowry was arranged according to the highest princess-like scale. Logically speaking, this should be a grand wedding. It was only slightly inferior to the crown prince's wedding. Not to mention most of the high-ranking officials in the court, even some members of the sex and patrician families also attended this grand wedding out of respect. Yet who knew at this moment, the people attending the wedding ceremony all felt their scalps tingle. Not to mention the groom's seething malice, what was going on with him, which inexplicably made people feel a bit scared. Also, what was the meaning of this groom, cough, that obvious row of teeth marks on his chin? The funniest thing was that his left eye was swollen and bruised, which made it very awkward. Not only did it affect the vassal prince's looks, but it also made him look a bit more comical. When the vassal prince led commandery princess Eanyan into the vassal prince of Anan's estate while holding the other end of the red silk ribbon, everyone felt a seething killing intent at fuck. Wasn't this a grand wedding? Why did it look like a funeral? That there was something wrong with the vassal prince's expression. The crown prince looked as if he had lost his parents. His face was taut and he did not smile from beginning to end. Was it really a good idea to hold a wedding like this? There was also that commandery princess In, who was reluctantly tugging at the end of the red silk with small steps. She would pause twice after taking a step, causing the vassal prince to continuously turn around to glare at her. This wedding ceremony was really the strangest one they had seen recently. Eanyan gripped the end of the red silk tightly as she asked Su-je, who was beside her, in a low voice, "Did the crown prince come over?" "No, I didn't." Su-je was about to cry. What happened the night before was like a nightmare. Her miss had not even entered the house, but she had already become a joke in the entire residence. Now, not to mention vassal Prince Yi, even the vassal king of Anan and the vassal king Consort also disliked her very, very much. "Damn lass, you didn't give the letter to Xiao 11Z? Eanyan grabbed Su-je's arm, her sharp nails nearly digging into her flesh. Su-je whimpered. "Miss, Su-je gave it to you. I gave the letter to eunuch Xiao 11Z. Then how come His Highness didn't come?" "Miss, I heard that the crown princess got a fright yesterday, so the crown prince didn't even attend morning court today. He stayed in the Eastern Palace to accompany the crown princess," Su-je said aggrievedly. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.